Healthy.
Only the strong survives at this time of year.
Yeah.
Strong and big.
We're all set.
I'll call the meeting to order. Welcome, everyone. Please rise and join us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. Welcome to those in the audience and those viewing us at home. Go to item number 3, sign the 2012 presidential election warrant.
Mr. Chairman, I move to sign the November 6, 2012 presidential election warrant.
Second.
Motion, have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Anyone here for public comment?
Oh, John.
John?
Hearing none. Going to item 5. Mr. Fode, the minutes for the August 20th, 2012 regular session.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the August 20th, 2012 regular session minutes as written.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. September 4th,
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the September 4th, 2012 regular session minutes as written.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the September 17th, 2012 regular session minutes as written.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the October 1st, 2012 regular session minutes as written.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous. We take care of. Anything in the town administrator's report, Greg, that we can tackle in the next 3 minutes?
Appreciate it.
Yep.
Greg, are there no executive session minutes for a reason?
They're in progress.
Okay. We're going to
Item 11.
Gold supplement number 11,
Number 11.
town administrator's update.
Supplement.
It's in the supplement. Last page.
Yes.
Okay. Just some quick updates. The annual tax classification hearing is being scheduled for November 19th. This is the date that the Board of Assessors have requested, and we will have to advertise. And as you know, the board must decide on whether to maintain a single tax rate or have a split rate for fiscal year 2013. Keep in mind the purposes of the tax classification hearing is not to determine how the town spends money. That's done at town meeting. This is the way that the town distributes what its tax levy is for fiscal year 2013. And then that'll be decided at the public hearing, which will be taking place on November 19th. 2 is the Metropolitan Planning Commission would like to come in and make a presentation to you at a meeting next month on a project that they've identified as the sub-regional priority mapping project that includes North Reading. There are 9 other communities that I've listed here that are participants, 8 other communities that are participants. I will not list them out, but I did have an opportunity to meet with the MAPC representatives, and we being myself and staff, identified key areas for economic development, infrastructure improvements, and preservation opportunities. And you may ask, why do we want to do this? Well, the reason why we want to do this, as you know, is a lot of times grant money, state and federal monies are tied to what's considered to be a regional plan. So what we want to do is we want to be part of a regional plan that identifies key areas for development and growth, for preservation, and we want that to be done on a regional basis because the push right now on the state level is to do everything on a regional basis. So we want to be a participant in this study. And so I'd like them to come in and give the board a briefing, give you an idea of what doors may open as a result of this grant application being done, and again, give them an opportunity to make a presentation to the board. That would be the MAPC staff. Any questions on that?
Do you anticipate that to be the first meeting in November? Or?
Not sure. We originally were looking at it opposite the tax classification area. Don't have the same
That's why I
tax classification.
I have a question on the first one, but we can wait till the end.
Bids on the Damon Tavern repainting and exterior improvements were received a week and a half ago. This work is going to be done later this month and will be paid for from the revolving fund. Second time we've painted the Damon Tavern in probably the last 5 or 6 years. We want to keep it up to date and have it looking good. It was a very competitive bid that was put together, and we'll look forward to seeing the work commence forthwith. And hopefully everyone will be happy with the job that's being done. The color will not change from the approved color that's there right now. That was a color that was selected through the Historical District Commission, and we certainly want to go ahead and continue that color scheme that's there right now. And then the last item on my agenda is to express my appreciation to the board and the community for allowing me to attend the International City Management Conference in Arizona last week. I put a note here to say this is my 29th year in the profession, and even an old dog can learn some new tricks. One of the things that we want to do is look at what has been successful in other communities. And I'd like to, at the next meeting, summarize a presentation on some ideas and projects that could be beneficial to the town of North Reading based upon my knowledge and experiences with the conference.
Very good.
Thank you.
Briscoe, do you have a question?
Yeah, just on number one, it seems like every year we meet on around that November date to set the tax rate. But I'd like to request at the November 5th meeting that we have a presentation. I'd like Deb to come in and give us a presentation just so we understand why I'm not going to have the argument this year about split tax rate. I'm not going to go there because it's just a waste of my time. But I would like a presentation on the 5th to discuss why if we're going to have a single tax rate but we assess 2 different ways, I'd like a presentation on that. Just a presentation of why we do what we do. So it seems like we want to have a single tax rate for the residents and the commercial side, but we don't want to treat each other the same way. So I'd like a presentation that just describes why we do that, if that's possible, and do that on the 5th.
I understand
so
what you're saying.
Anything comes from that could help us make a decision on the 19th.
I understand what you're saying.
And then I may have a little presentation that I'd like to give on the 5th as well.
Related to that?
Related to that. But I would send it to the board in advance to decide if we want to do that or not.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
That's it, thank you.
Mr. O'Leary?
Yeah, is this going to be like a point counterpoint as far as your presentation? Is this going to be in concert with, or is it addendum to what the assessors may be presenting us, or is it
Yeah.
point counterpoint?
No, not point counterpoint. I think it will support, well, I guess it's just going to be information. It's really not anything else but just information. It's going to show you some graphs of what we've done. I'll give you a perfect example. Last year, we had the residential tax rate, residential assessed value went from 401 to 450. The commercial assessed value went down. Okay, so we took not only a hit on our assessed value, and then the tax rate went up. So we took 2 hits on the residential side, and the commercial side actually stayed flat. And that's actually been the same thing that's happened for the last 3 years. So we should just talk about it. Is that really fair? Is it, if that's, I just want to have a discussion. I don't want to do it the night of the 19th because we're pushed up against the wall on that. We have to make a decision on the tax rate to get the bills out on time.
I would suggest this, maybe you should meet with, if you haven't already done so.
I have done a little bit.
Tax.
I'm still meeting with, we're going to be meeting again.
Yeah, just share ahead of time.
So she's aware.
Oh, of course,
what you have.
absolutely. I just wanted to bring it up so you all know that I'm asking for this, and I've already met with them once, and Liz and I are going to meet again maybe this week and definitely next week on this. So we've already been exchanging some information.
Yeah, I don't necessarily have an issue with it, as long as she's aware of what you're going to present, so
Yep.
she's has knowledge.
They're well
of
aware.
walking it. Okay.
Well aware.
All right. If we can
Thank
get.
you.
All right, you're welcome. If we can get.
Public input, I think it's on the agenda now, right? Anybody in public looking to speak? I think that was on our agenda. Did you call for it already?
Public comment?
Public comment?
I think you were signing something.
Oh, okay.
I got it.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
That's all right. Want me to ask again?
No.
I'll move to our
They had their shot.
scheduled 7:15 public hearing, Joe Fish, 60 Main Street, common victular, all alcohol license application. Mr. Fode? Read the public hearing.
Notice of public hearing, in accordance with Chapter 138 of the Massachusetts General Laws, a public hearing will be held by the Board of Selectmen, Room 14, Town Hall, 235 North Street, on Monday, October 15th, 2012, at 7:15 p.m. on the application of Jim's Restaurant Group, LLC, DBA Joe Fish Seafood Restaurant for a common vitriol all alcohol license. License is to be exercised at 60 Main Street, North Reading, Massachusetts. Restaurant is a first-floor premises containing approximately 5,448 square feet of space.
Thanks, Judy.
This is good. Gonna deliver too?
I know.
You gotta-
No samples?
Hey,
Had some the other night.
Thank you. You did?
Yeah.
Go up? Oh,
Put it in so people can see it.
that's right.
We'll be taking orders shortly.
Sorry?
We'll take orders shortly. I want to thank you for having us tonight, and, sorry.
Go ahead. You're probably going to introduce yourself and the
Yes.
gentleman standing next to you, so I'm sorry.
Is that okay?
I was just going to ask you. Although I think most of us have, not everyone
People
knows.
that don't know me, I think I know most people here in the room tonight, but my name is Jim Dimitri, lived here in town for many years. With me tonight is Jim Dietz. Jim and I have been business partners for almost 13 years. We own the Joe Fish Restaurant in North Andover, as well as the Loft Steak and Chop House in North Andover. As you know, we're here tonight for an application for a new liquor license at the 60 Main Street, formerly Piccadilly Pub. We'll open it up for questions that anybody has.
Anyone? Any questions?
Just the number of seats, capacity compared to what it was or what it is, which are
Yep.
similar.
150 seats capacity. It's, I believe it's the same as what they had. The bar capacity was 20 seats, and we're keeping it the same. It's actually the same structure, but completely rebuilt, the bar. The interior of the restaurant was pretty much gutted out, with the exception of the kitchen, which we're just bringing up to code and cleaning up quite a bit. The bar's going to be completely redone. The exterior of the building will be repainted, new signage, replacing the existing signage. Parking. I promised, Jim and I already talked before I came in here, and I promised I wasn't going to give you all the answers, and I was trying to give you some room to ask us some questions. So stop me at any time. But the parking requirement is 38 spots, I believe, per the code. We have 95 spots dedicated, with the addition of additional spots, obviously, from the plaza. But we have dedicated 95 spots of our own, 4 of which are handicapped.
Be happy to know we upgraded the bathrooms.
Thank you.
Handicap
That was an issue of
accessibility.
accessibility.
Yeah, both bathrooms are handicapped, accessible. We actually just completely wiped them all out and redid them all over.
Jim, I was looking at the layout. In the old Piccadilly Pub, the bar area was kind of off from the restaurant area.
Yep,
And this looks, unless I'm missing something, wide open.
yes.
Is that so?
When you first came in the old Piccadilly Pub, there was a long corridor that you came down. That corridor is still there, but to the left, we knocked the wall down and made it a half wall, so it kind of opened it up. In addition to that, there was an area when you first came in on the left-hand side that was a huge liquor storage room. We took those walls down and opened that up to add, just kind of reposition some of the seating. We have some high tops. We lost a little bit of seating in the what would have been the bar area and added some dining room seating. We felt that we needed more dining room area for dinner. We proposed to be a restaurant, not a bar.
Mr. Dietz, you'll be the manager of this location?
Yes.
And presently, are you managing the North Andover location?
I have management in both restaurants. I have a general manager and assistant for the front of the house. I have a kitchen manager and assistant in the back of the house of each restaurant. So right now, I kind of oversee them, as call it a director. And when I go to the new restaurant, I'll actually be there as the opening manager until I put somebody else in place and do a similar thing.
Board members?
What's the
Briscoe?
expected date of open?
We'll have construction completed, renovations and construction completed by December 1. That's our story, and that's what we're sticking to. We're not telling the contractors anything different. But the reality of it is that we have to go through this process, then off to ABCC. We really can't start hiring and training people till we know that we have that. We don't want to speculate when we're going to get it. So depending on when we get that license, then we'll hire. We've got a good 2 or 3 weeks of training in addition to people who are already starting to take on the other 2 restaurants to train to bring here, and then we'll open up. So depending on the timing of it, if it ends up being Christmas, we're not going to be training during Christmas.
Well, you'll be back in here by then for your license.
A new one, yeah, another one.
Okay, thank you.
What do you anticipate your hours of operation will be?
We're going to open 11:30 for lunch, and then if I mirror what I'm doing in North Andover, it'll be a 10:30 kitchen closing, and then my bar closes a half an hour after the kitchen. So it'll be 11 o'clock.
7 days a week?
7 days a week.
And then I forget what the current, the formal license was there. My guess is
1240.
1240. So
Last call,
you're looking to petition for the same hours that was previously,
yes.
but
But
in fact, your operation will be.
correct.
Okay.
I'm a restaurant, not a bar. We do about a 25-75 mix, meaning 25% of our business is alcohol, 75 is food, and we concentrate on the food. Our bar is there for the guests. I don't like any late night. I don't like any drinking. I don't want to be known as a place to go drink. I want to be known as a place to go eat and enjoy a cocktail while you're doing that.
Since you've owned the locations in North Andover, any issues with your liquor license at either one of the 2 locations?
Never.
No.
I think January will be 13 years.
Yep.
At the Joe Fish, and the Loft has been, how many years, Jim?
8 years,
8 years.
never an issue.
Mr. Valley-Jones?
Some questions. You mentioned about the bar restaurant business. Keno license, the
No.
former location had a Keno license?
Yeah, we're not doing that.
Keno license. And any outdoor seating contemplated?
Would like to, but it's not in the plans right now.
Okay, just keep in mind that
Yeah.
if you do, you have to come back before the board.
Yeah.
All your employees be tips trained, I would presume?
Tips trained for all my front of the house and bar, for my servers and my bartenders. Back of the house will be serve safe. We'll have choke save and allergy awareness. Those licenses are mandatory now by the state, so somebody will always be licensed for all those 4 things at all times in the building.
Excellent. Anything further?
I would just like to state that I'm excited by the prospects of your opening. I appreciate you're willing to make the investment in our community. I know you've been here for forever and a day. But you're really investing in our own community, and I think Route 28 needs it. I think this is going to be a great shot in the arm, and I know you run a great establishment, 2 establishments up in North Andover, and I look forward to the opening.
Thank
Great,
you.
thanks.
Thank you.
And in case you can figure it out, I'm going to vote in favor.
Depends on my motion.
What's your color scheme?
Actually, if you look at the board up here, I can grab it for you and give you a little overview, if you want to just pass that around while I'm showing the other colors. That's actually the bar. That's going to be black, blue, and silver. The back bar is going to have some luminescent lights behind it, and then the beer tap's coming right out of the wall. It's just going to be very classic, very nice, very clean. These are our color schemes, basically. Our booths, as you can see down here. 3 different colors are right down there. This umbrella pattern is going to be scattered at a couple different places throughout the restaurant as the back fabric. Bar stools and dining room chairs are going to have different contrasting colors, and that's one of the featured walls that we have in the back of the restaurant. So when you walk in, the back of the wall is going to have this beadboard all around the restaurant, but it's featured with mirrors and some nice little pieces. So I can pass that around if you want to look at it too.
You can't order from that right now, so.
I was just making sure I had something that I could eat. I don't eat fish.
Yeah, there's steak on there.
Steak tips and chicken.
My wife is
Steak and
excited.
chicken.
And you go to the loft.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Looks great.
You did.
You have a motion? I want to make it right now, Mr. Chairman, I move to grant a common victular all alcohol license to Jim's Restaurant Group, LLC, DBA Joe Fish Seafood Restaurant, 60 Main Street. James A. Dietz, manager, subject to all regulatory department requirements.
Second.
Motion, I have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Congratulations.
Congratulations, good luck.
Thank you very much. We appreciate all the cooperation in the town that we've had through the process so far. It's been very good. Thank you.
Jim, good luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Take care.
Good night.
Do we need to
Yes, we do need those.
leave them here?
Yes,
Both?
the cards, yes. Yes, both. Thank you very much. Spent,
And then you put those people on your Christmas card.
you did a few mailings.
Yeah, we did. It was a lot. We had the complex, we
It was right
visited
there.
500 feet, so, yeah.
That did it.
Keep those. Thank you. We got what we wanted, we're gonna get out.
Appreciate it.
Smart.
Okay. Moving on to the Taxation Aid Committee presentation. Mr. Briscoe.
You have it on the computer, right? Yep, it's in the packet.
No, I think the only thing that's on the computer, Michael, is the capital planning committee. I think.
We're about, Michael.
Thanks.
Do you want me to get it off of my laptop?
If you wouldn't mind, that would be great.
Mhm.
And the folks at home can see. On my page?
Yeah, lost in
Sure.
Page 35.
Thank you.
36 is the next one.
book.
35.
Well, that was in a separate,
Yeah, it was a
that was
separate.
it. Joe Fish was separate.
Oh, that's what I can't.
Yeah,
Right.
Thank you, Liz. While Liz is setting that up, I'll just say a couple things. Come over here, so you can hear me. This is a subject I brought up back in April, actually prior to Mr. Fode joining the board. And during the discussions with the board, we all agreed that it would be something worthy of researching and seeing if we could make something of it. And the recommendation I brought forward was based on the recent increase in the taxes in the potential challenge that could put on our seniors and our disabled folks in town. I noticed in some of the other towns, they actually have a taxation aid fund, and people donated. People in their own town donated, and the fund seems to work. I was in touch with the people in Middleton. They've been doing it for a lot of years, and it seems to work out pretty well. And that's what I did, is I took a lot of what they were doing in Middleton. I met with Liz's staff, Marion McKay, and Deb Carboni, our assessor, and we put this together for your consideration tonight. And what I found out actually during the process is back in, I want to say 82, the town actually did something like this. We actually had a fund already created. Something somewhat a little different than this. This has one added entity that it didn't have back in 1982, and we refined it. And as you can see here in your first slide is,
Do you have a PowerPoint presentation in the Dropbox or just this?
that's good.
Okay.
Oh, no, is that the only slide?
No, it's just the whole packet that you guys.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
We can go through it that way. Thank you. So not only did we focus on the elderly and disabled, when we met back in April, when Mr. Yule was part of the board, he felt pretty strong that we needed to also have a way to give some temporary relief to those that fall outside of those two areas. And then I got the sense from the board that you all felt that we should try to do that. So we did that. And so I'll just start over here. And this tax relief fund actually is already starting out with $13,501,000. And it's a wonderful way to start. So we actually have some money to work with right out of the gate. And the reason it actually it was in the $12,000 range, but the recent donation made by the Invest in North Reading committee, which we much appreciate, it was a little over $1,200, helped bring it over $1,000. So we're going to focus on the elderly, and we have a process, which I'll go over that later, but the applicant or their spouse must be age 65 before July 1st, 2012, and they need to provide evidence. Now, this actually matches up, what I'm talking about, mirrors what we've already do in other exemptions we provide in town. And the same goes for the disabled. This matches up very similar, so we didn't want to try to create a new program that has different requirements. And so when the elderly come in and they're going to register for some of the other exemptions, this will be easy for them to fall right into it. And we'll get to the discussion of the application in a minute. And then the temporary relief, what we come up with, at least in draft format for your consideration tonight, is, and I'll read it here, is they need to provide a letter with detailing their financial hardship, their financial concerns, what happened to cause their situation, when, what they're asking for, and how they can plan to get back on track. So that was the best way we could come up with. I mean, we spent a lot of time on how to address Mr. Yule's concerns, and this is the best way we've come up with. And we can talk a little bit more about this as I get through the next few slides. And then down below, in this particular side, everybody has to meet that criteria, that main criteria. You know, the incomes, obviously the property, if you're a single person, one occupier of a property, their household income can't be over $18,873,000. If it's combined with multiple people living in the house, and husband and spouse, then it's $21,766. And there is a little list of things that create the sources of that income. You can see down here below: Social Security, supplement Social Security, retirement, pension, veterans benefits, workman's comp, salaries from any work or wages they may have, or dividends. And all that's going to be provided in the application. They're going to have to provide that information. You got a question? Go right ahead.
Can you tell me where those two figures came from?
That was actually provided to me by the tax collector. She gave me those numbers.
Okay, thanks.
They're set by the state.
Okay.
For other, for the other elderly exemption,
Yeah.
those are the limits.
Actually, it's median family income, it's established by HUD. Federal.
Yeah, and again, it
It's
matches
updated,
what we already do in town. So I don't want to, we didn't create anything new.
Thank you.
One of the big key things that we're going to make sure is that the applicant lives here. Their primary residence is here in North Reading. And then the other thing that we really wanted to point out on this particular slide is this last bullet, and this was from Deb Carboni. She made a really good point, is, if there's interest and penalties that already exist because they've been falling behind, those are not going to go away. They'll still be responsible for paying them, but if we can give them some relief to help them get there, and then over time get them on a payment plan or something like that, but we're not going to waive any of those interest and penalties. The key here is for anyone that's interested in applying, they're going to have to file an application annually, and they have to do it before the 15th of February. And the reason why we picked the 15th of February, they need time internally here to process the paperwork and make sure we have enough time to go through our process as the Taxation Aid Committee to approve or deny it, and so we can get the tax bills corrected on whatever we decide to grant. Okay, next slide, please. The next slide is actually just a placeholder. We don't have the final application. I thought we were going to have it before I came in tonight, and we don't. Liz has been working with the Munis folks. We're going to try to come up with an electronic formatted application process and have a standard hard copy that somebody can fill out. We're going to have a kiosk set up at the collector's desk that when they come in, one of our staff members will move up to the kiosk with them and help them fill it out electronically. And we want to try to, so it all ties into our system, would be the best way. If they have to come in and they don't have the ability to do it electronically from their own home, they can come in and use the standard format, fill out a form. Then we would just take the labor on our side and do the inputting into the system. So we're still working on that. That's a TBD. I wanted to just kind of run through the process real quick, and then I'll get off the floor here. But this is how we perceive the way it would work. The resident would submit the application before the 15th of February. You'd go to the assessor's office. She would accept the application. They would run through the process to make sure all the criteria was met in the application. And once that's done, it would get forwarded over here to the Taxation Aid Committee. We would post that meeting once a year. We would go through the process of doing approvals and denials, send it back over to the, then we'd send out letters actually to the applicants letting them know whether they were accepted or denied and then how much money we were actually able to award them. Then the tax collector would amend the May tax bills to reflect whatever amount the Taxation Aid Committee awards. And then that's pretty much it. Any questions on the process? Yes?
What's the source of funding?
Well, I said that earlier in the beginning of it's all through donations. And so far from the...
I know what's in the fund, and that was established a while ago.
Yeah.
And I think this is a great thing, but I am concerned about... You know,
I'm getting to that
is it
actually what
gonna
this
be a
slide here is for.
committee to go and raise funds?
No. Well, that's why I put this slide in here.
Okay.
Okay? It's really funded by the community. You know, we have a wonderful community. It really does support our seniors and our disabled folks. And a lot of the other communities do this as well. When they get a tax bill, they're actually going to get a little flyer in that tax bill, and they're going to have an opportunity to make a donation, whether it's $5, $3, whatever they want it to be, $20. And that will all go towards this fund. It's completely funded by the community, by the local businesses, whatever they want. They have an opportunity to make this contribution, and we're going to publicize it and get the word out. And a lot of the towns actually put it right on the bill. I think actually in April I provided the board a copy of the one in Middleton. You saw how they do it. We're not going to do it that particular way. We're going to actually put an insert in because I believe our system would be a little more challenging for us to be able to modify it to actually place it on the bill. And then if somebody wants to make a contribution, we're going to add, as soon as, if this board approves this tonight, we're going to go ahead and add a Unibank through our Unibank system that's through the town website. We'll add a link in there for people to go online and do it through Unibank and do it as an ACH transaction. And we were going to encourage people to do it as ACH transactions because there's no fees, no convenience fees. You know, I think we've all heard that when you use your credit card using the the Unibank process, there's some convenient fees, and they're pretty expensive. So we're going to encourage people to use an ACH transaction, and that will get set up on our town website.
Mike, so you've raised an amount of money in a given year, whatever it is.
Yep.
You know, off the get-go, you said we get around...
$13,501.
So you get a bunch of applicants, perhaps, in February, a large number,
Mm-hmm.
and you get a limited amount of funds.
Yep. Not everybody's going to get something. We're going to go through the process with the committee, which I will show you. That's going to come up in the next slide. That committee will have to make some tough decisions, and we're going to try to spread the money the best way we can to the ones that really need it the most. That's all we can do. And if the more people donate through this process, then the more we can do. The less we get less funds, it's the less we can do. And I would hope that we get the support of the board to help get the word out on this. Liz, if you could just go up for 1 second, I just want to point out that they could send checks when they submit their tax bill and they send a payment in. They can also provide a separate check just for this fund. And that'll be in the instructions that'll be included with the bills. And they can also come in and come right here in the town hall and do that donation right at the counter as well. And anything that we get, of course, we would send a thank you letter from the Taxation Aid Committee thanking the donor. And then the next slide is just a formation of the committee. We would like it was back in 1982. It was a 5-person committee. We would like to continue with the size of that committee. I'm sorry, 2001. I apologize. It was voted in September 2001. It was a 5-person committee. We'd like to continue to do that. These are the names that I have so far. I do have a resident that may be interested. They got to submit their car. Once this becomes make it official again. We get it back on the books and reinstate this committee and get it active again, because right now it's been kind of in limbo. All 5 members would have voting rights. And then I put this together with the folks in the finance office of just some of the frequently asked questions. I'm not going to run through them all, but it at least gives you some idea of what we've been thinking about and what we feel other people would be thinking about to make sure. And we'll add to this as we go along, because there'll be a lot of good questions coming out once we get this established and up and running. Any questions?
Just a couple things. What's Middleton's record been as far as dollar-wise? What have they been able to raise annually?
I believe they've been, if I remember correctly from Deb, they've actually done fairly well. And I think they always have somewhere around the $12,000, $13,000, $14,000 range.
And the other thing is, as far as expending the money,
Mm-hmm.
is that going to require, what type of an account is it? Is it going to require an appropriation through town meeting? Or is it treated like a revolving, it's a revolving gift?
It's a gift, right.
What, a gift account?
Gift account.
Mhm. So once, it's already been established, so that's what would have required the, the vote to establish the fund. So it's established for that particular purpose, to receive donations for, tax relief purposes, so we can expend from it without approval.
Does it require approval of the board?
No. Just to establish it, it did.
Yeah, and you guys did that back in
Once
September
it's just, you establish it.
2001.
Once you
Once it's-
establish it and it's for that particular purpose, we can expend for that purpose.
Mr. Bailey?
I think it's good looking plan. Is the action of the committee, is there any appeal to it? Someone disagrees with your decision?
No, we didn't. Of course, they will have the contacts, and they could do that at any time. We didn't really make it part of the process,
Just
but if you
maybe
feel
in the FA
that that's something we
frequently-
should
You
do,
may want to put that in the frequently asked questions so that people know that it's one
Yeah.
stop.
it's a good question. I will do
One
that.
stop. And the other thing is, with the senior tax relief program, we have some pretty strict guidelines in terms of property ownership.
Yes,
So that if you're not the owner of the property, you're
Mhm.
not eligible for the program.
that's correct. And that's what, if you go back and look at
It's
slide
just
one, it
parallel
says it
the
right on
exact
that.
Exact same.
It's going to be
process.
right on the
So if
application.
it's in the name of, say, a real estate trust,
Correct.
the people would be ineligible?
I believe we actually, yeah, I think there was actually a case just recently when Mr. Delaney actually met with a young lady, an older lady who went through this. He spent a lot of time with her. She went through the process, and come to find out, her property was under a trust, and it didn't qualify her for the support that he had already arranged for her, unfortunately. So, matter of fact, we've sent back the word to her that once this is established, we're going to ask her to, because she's going through the process of taking it out of the trust now, and when she does that, they'll go through this process so we can try to help her.
There are occasionally people that want to participate in the senior work program
Yeah,
who are ineligible.
yeah, it's a really good point, and if it's in a trust, then no, they will not qualify for this. It has to be the primary owner of the property.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Yes.
Mike, you mentioned Middleton, they typically have about $12,000. Do you know how many applications they get?
I don't know. Unfortunately, I actually told Deb and Mary Ann they wanted to come tonight, but I know they had some other family things, and it would have been a little challenging for them to be here, so I told them not to come, but if there's questions like this that come up, I will get that answer and I'll get it back to you. I know she has it.
The only thing she mentioned today was that, due to the economic times, their donations, they've seen them go down a little bit. Not a huge impact, but they have, a few thousand gone down.
Yeah, don't hold me to the number, but I believe that's the number she had mentioned to me when we met.
She did. She said on average that is what they collect.
Yeah, and I really do hope the community will take this to heart, and again, it's a fund that's not looking for hundreds and thousands of dollars. It's looking for the $5, $10, $20 type donations, because all of that will add up, and it really will help our senior community out, our disabled community, and those folks that fall outside of that. But we now have an opportunity, if you agree, to have that additional section of this fund. Then we can try to help out some of those that are really in dire need.
Just in relation to the temporary tax relief fund, you said on that other page that they would still have to meet the income requirement, which is
Yes.
pretty pretty low.
Yeah.
Less than $22,000 for a household income. So if somebody falls on hard times because they've lost their job, 3 months into the year, and they may have already surpassed $22,000,
Mhm.
but they have a mortgage and a car payment and, tuitions or whatever
Yeah.
else it is that they're dealing with, certainly
Yeah.
substantial hardship, and maybe at a point of, needing the break. So there isn't any, if you're using the same median household income, HUD median household income of $22,000 for a married couple, it might rise a little bit. It's not in here necessarily. Excuse me, it does say all others. Some of the median household incomes are based upon number of people in the household too.
Mhm. Right.
So in other words, there may be this may rise to $40,000 or $48,000 if it's a household of 4. But that's not, this says all others.
Yeah.
So I'm just looking at, people who, fall on hard times.
Yeah.
Trying to, they probably would not be eligible for the program. And I know this is infancy stages and it's starting. Got to start somewhere.
Yeah, what I try to do is take a little bit of what we were doing prior, back in 2001, before it stopped, so we can get this thing resurrected and get it going again, because February is not too far away, and I really would like, but I agree with you, Steve. I think you make a good point, and I could go back to the committee and talk about that, and that we can maybe have a varying criteria for this particular block. We can keep this block here under these two, and then we can create another one that's maybe a little more, gives us some flexibility.
More flexibility for someone who truly does.
Absolutely. I don't think
There's a
there's a
normal
problem with that.
household.
I mean, I don't know how the other board members feel about it, but
I agree. I think you need some
Yeah.
flexibility under that category.
Yeah,
for the
that's a good
reasons
point.
that Stephen stated.
we did talk about it, but we were struggling with it. So we just figured, let's present it this way and see if, somebody else comes up with a better idea. I think we could probably do that very easily. Just add a separate criteria that falls under the temporary tax relief, because it is temporary. All right, let's face it, and each year, no matter who it is, they're gonna have to come in and file annually. And we hope, and one of the things we'd like to try to make sure that they provide, as you see right here, is they gotta provide, if they're gonna come into that temporary tax relief, they have to also have a plan to tell us how they're gonna get back on track. Okay, because if people aren't willing to help themselves, we can't help them.
When this was formed in 2001, how did they approach the temporary tax relief?
They didn't. They did not do it,
have that.
no. This was a request in which the majority of the board agreed with Mr. Yule. He really felt strongly that we needed something like this, and I agreed with him. I think we did, and again, we spent most of our time on this one, and we want to do that. And we'll go ahead and modify this to create another criteria. I'll send that forward to you folks once we get that established. But I would like, at least out of the gate, if we could get this going now and get the approval to at least move forward and get this publicized, and then we'll go ahead and modify some kind of criteria just for the temporary tax relief.
Yeah, and I think Greg's point too, as far as, one of your frequently asked questions, that, it's one shot and the decision of the
Yep.
committee is final, no
Okay.
appeal necessarily, or unless you want to put in some sort of appeal process.
Mr. Kelleher.
Yes, sir.
Have you or will you establish a maximum amount per homeowner out
Yeah.
of the fund? And I know it'd be difficult to set a maximum you're going to spend in a year, but you've got such limited funds now, and you don't know what's going to come in.
Yep.
You're going to put the program in place, and it dies after a year.
Right. No, we agree. We're not going to spend the whole $13,000 out of the gate. We are going to try to keep some kind of retainment in there so we have something for next year. I don't want to, without having the whole committee weigh in on this,
Yeah.
I don't want to say, we'll spend probably around half of it and leave the other half, but I think that's kind of where we're thinking about going, at least for this coming up new calendar year.
And then establishing a maximum. per-
Correct. Yep. And again, we don't want to put a hard number on it for any of this, because we could turn out where we only have maybe one or two, we may have 10, 12 applicants come in, but only 2 really stand out that really, really need the help, and we may give all the money to them. The committee may just feel that, the others didn't give strong enough application to warrant that they get any money, and these other 2 did, and we're gonna, we'll put the money towards them. Again, it's a decision based on a committee of 5 people.
You'd have to have some criteria for the amount you're awarding. though.
Yes, we do,
So
yep.
it's not discriminatory.
I agree.
Really
Yep.
discriminatory.
We have that, we're still working on it. And again, once we have the 5th person in here, a lot of that, the rest of that stuff will get ironed out, but I think we're ready to go, at least getting the word out that we have this, and before February comes, I think we'll have all the criteria laid out, documented in our process.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
Again, there's no intention to, anybody who's participating now in the senior program, they would still be eligible.
Correct, absolutely. And we want to make sure our application ties to that, so it makes it easy for them to just transfer their information over for this application. That's why we're going to try to do it electronically, so they may be able to fill it out in one area, and then we just have to extrapolate what we need to satisfy our requirements. So they don't have a lot of administrative work. That may not happen initially out of the gate, but I know you're working with Munis. Munis is aware of this and thinks that there's probably some simple ways, very inexpensive ways to help us create that kind of an application.
Anything further?
I'm not sure if I need a motion or what I need to proceed to go forward.
Bless you. I appreciate your efforts and those of District A, Ms. Carboni. And I will say, the woman you spoke about that I spoke to, Ms. Carboni spent countless hours with her, assisting her, wasn't it?
Well, I agree, Mrs. Carboni did, and you as well, though.
So, do we
Make a
have
motion to recommend that we move forward with it.
Yeah, do we
Project
need to,
as
do we need to
recommended.
reestablish the taxation aid committee with the following members appointed for an indefinite period?
probably, to get it moving,
Yeah, okay.
I'd be in favor of
Mr. Chairman, I move to resurrect the taxation aid committee with the following 4 members to be serving for an indefinite period. Mary Ann McKay, in their official capacities.
Correct.
In their official capacities. Mary Ann McKay, collector. Deb Carboni, assessor. Michael Prisco, liaison, Board of Selectmen. Mary Prenny, director of elder affairs. And 1 resident to be determined.
Second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Good job, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Everybody involved, guys.
You know, Deb and Mary Ann did a lot of work, and I really appreciate all their time they took away from their day to do it.
Okay, we don't have to wait, right? for
No, it's
you.
not a public hearing.
Discussion, item 8, discussion to create capital improvement planning committee. Who's going, I think this is, Mr. Vale's going to present. This was born out of discussions that I had with the chair of the finance committee and the then vice chair of the finance committee, Mr. Kelleher. We seem to struggle with doing capital for October soon after our what is now our June town meeting, and getting it laid out and vetted. It's a lot of responsibility borne by Mr. Valiakonis. So the thought was, if we could form a committee that you're going to hear about this evening, who takes the lead along with Mr. Valiakonis, and vetting all the capital items early on in the process, so we have the information when it comes time for this board to consider well in advance of recommending capital items. So that's how this topic came about. And at this point, I'll turn it over to Ms. Paveo and Mr. Fode, if they can get the presentation up. There it is. It's up.
So this was a joint effort for all of us, as Mr. Delaney just said. And, you know, we met several times and went over how we do things, how we can do things better. And we came up with some ideas, and we also traveled to other communities to see how their capital planning committee functioned. And but we already had a foundation here, especially from the Finance Committee. They developed a capital improvement policy in 2011, which was a guide for the town to use in order to acquire capital items. So just the basics, you know, what is a capital expenditure under the capital improvement policy? Well, a capital project or capital expenditure is a major non-reoccurring expenditure, so a large ticket item. currently for FY13, which is not up there, but the minimum value of a capital expenditure is $10,000. So going forward, a capital expenditure will have a minimum value of $15,000 in FY14, $20,000 in FY15, and $25,000 in 2016 and thereafter. And it also has to have a useful life of 5 or more years. So, you know, as we were building the budget this year, we all know that a police cruiser, a marked police cruiser, doesn't have that lifespan, so it's not considered a capital item. So a lot of people would think, well, that fits into the minimum value, but it's not fitting into the category for its useful life. And the Finance Committee, you know, prefers the funding source to be pay-as-you-go. So instead of bonding and borrowing, it used money that's on hand. Mr. Foti will discuss this slide.
Yeah, I apologize. This was put in earlier today. I asked Liz to add it. I just think it kind of gives us the benefits of having a formal capital improvement plan program. So just to go over it real quick, it allows for a systematic evaluation of all potential projects at the same time. In other words, it'll just give us the benefit of getting a look at everything that we are looking at to do it, not just in the short term, but in the long term, or at least over the next 5 years. It'll establish coordination between capital needs and operating budgets, how we separate what we consider a capital project and what we consider using general operating funds for on an annual basis. Liz explained how that's going to be separated going forward. It enhances the town's credit rating through improved fiscal planning and avoidance of sudden change in debt service requirements. I think that's self-explanatory. It just allows us to know where we're going to be spending money, again, in the short term, and hopefully what we're going to be planning out for our following 5 years. Provides opportunity to foster cooperation among town departments and ability to prevent duplication of tasks. This would be a situation where we'll have all the proposals in hand, and we'll be able to look at them, vet them, and have discussion with the proposals, the people who are making the proposals, and discuss the opportunity of maybe coordinating between department heads and seeing if we can, in fact, work together to make sure we're not duplicating anything. It'll preserve local infrastructure while ensuring the efficient use of public funds. It'll give us a look at our worst-case scenarios as far as water, mains, streets, and even our vehicles, and see if, in fact, what our worst-case scenarios are and how we can go forward and making sure that we address them before they get too deficient. It'll identify the most economical means of financing projects. That'll be, between Greg and the finance department to figure out how we're going to pay for these, whether through borrowing or grants or anything like that. It'll increase the opportunity for obtaining federal and state aid. I think it'll give us a leg up when people who grant this aid and grants to say that we have all our fiscal ducks in order and it'll look upon us in a favorable manner. The last thing is just it keeps public informed about future needs and projects. I think that's very important that people know ahead of time what's going on, hopefully, again, in the short term, but more importantly, in the long term. So, I apologize for this being put in last minute, but I just thought it was something that was important that we got to look at. Thank you.
Excuse me, can we get a copy of this?
It's in the supplement.
It's in the supplement. It's in the supplement?
Okay, so what we're hoping to achieve from tonight's presentation is to develop a freestanding advisory committee, which would be made up of 8 members, the 2 from the town, so the town administrator and the finance director, 2 from the finance committee, 2 members of the Board of Selectmen, and 2 designees of the school committee. And the reason why I say designees of the school committee is it doesn't have to be 2 members of the school committee. It could be 1 member of the school committee, and it could be, another designee that they choose. It's, that's up to them. How the process.
Hold on. Mr. Series and Mr. Briscoe.
It would seem to be more appropriate to have the school business manager involved
Yes.
rather than 2 members of the school committee.
Right. That's why.
the designee.
Right.
Sorry, Mr. Briscoe.
Each one has voting? All 8 have a vote?
It's
They'll
done
explain-
differently, yes, we'll get to
As
that.
you get through the process,
We're not a
they'll
voting
explain
co-
why, in their process, an even number really isn't going to have an impact. That was a concern when they first presented it to me, that I had the even number, but they'll explain later.
Mhm.
And then, maybe the questions to you, Greg, is, can you really have a designee? Don't you have to get sworn in on this committee? We're gonna establish it as an official committee where you have to be sworn in?
I think the point here is that the school committee will decide which two they're going to recommend.
Right.
And then there'll be a name.
And then they'll serve on it.
Right.
Right.
It won't be
It's not gonna
change,
be-
it won't be changing.
Okay.
I just say two designees because, like Mr. Messeri said, the school business manager would make sense to have on there, as well as, maybe the chair or vice chair of the school committee.
Got it.
So,
Maybe you want to say two designees of the school department, so the
Right.
superintendent can weigh in, so it's just not school committee,
sure.
and the recommendation as to who the designees will be.
Thank you.
So our process for this committee will be similar to the capital process that we currently have in place. It will happen sooner than we do it currently, but it's the same type of process. So the finance department will send out capital request forms to department heads on or about October 20th. The forms have just been tailored a little bit to fit our needs, but it's basically the same information that department heads have been filling out all along. Capital request forms will be due back in December 15th, so they have about 2 months to think about all their potential capital needs. Then we'll meet and we will review all the requests by January 15th. And at that point, once we've reviewed all of the requests, then we will request that each department head appear before the capital planning committee and present their requests to us, and really, show us why they need what they're requesting. And our ultimate goal as a committee is to develop a multi-year capital plan so we can have some long-range planning and have a good idea of what the town is in need of for capital items. So this is a sample capital request form that we will be sending out to department heads. General information, who the project's requested by, either the department or the department head. You can also see up at the top it says priority 1 of 1. So the department head would put their priorities and submit them in that order. Project description, project justification, why do they need this new item, whatever it may be, a new backhoe or whatever the big ticket item is. The estimated cost, explain how you arrived at that cost. So if they went out and they got 3 quotes, they should state that, and they should state, attached or whatnot. So we have all, the more information, the better. So now getting to the how we're going to actually vote or, rank these capital projects. So we really aren't going to be a voting committee. We're going to take all of the capital requests after we've met with the department heads and we've reviewed them, we've asked all the questions, if we have further questions, we've brought them back again, or we've gone on a site visit to, check out if, the fire truck is really rusting or whatever it is. We've done all of our research. So we will, each individual on our own, we will rank each project that has been brought forward to us. And then we will tally all of those rankings and develop a consensus. Once they've all been tallied up and we've got them in order, we will prepare a capital improvement plan, and we will then come in front of the Board of Selectmen and present it most likely the first week of April. So as we've gone through, we have some deadlines. So October 20th, the forms will go out. December 15th, they'll be due back to the finance department. January 15th, the capital improvement Capital Planning Committee will review all those requests, and then we will develop a plan by April and present to the board then. So the evaluation criteria, how we evaluate each project that's brought forward to us and how we take that criteria and apply it to our ranking, why we've put something in the first position even though it may seem like it has higher priority. What is the impact on public safety and public health? Also, you know, how bad has the facility deteriorated? You know, is the facility or equipment being rehabbed, or is it just being replaced? Most likely, it's just going to be replaced. You know, I think to rehab, it wouldn't meet all of our criteria. You know, is it impacting how staff is efficiently doing their job? Can we coordinate with another project or goal of the town? Let's see. The impact on protection or conservation of the town's natural resources, as Mr. Foti said, you know, that is an important aspect of a capital program. And is it a new, or is it expanding a town facility? You know, is it a new item, or is it something that's really going to substantially expand a town facility? This is our sample ranking sheet, so you can see that we would list each one, you know, from 1 to however many projects are received in that given year. The department, the project, the amount, and we also, as a committee, will go over the different funding sources. So it would be myself and the town administrator's responsibility to bring forth, you know, what funds we have available, whether it's free cash or bonding or some, you know, a grant or some other source of funding. And then to the right, it says Capital Planning Committee members, and each one of those columns will have one of the members' names, and they'll rank each project accordingly, and then we'll come up with an average per project. And that's the end. That's our presentation. Any questions?
Just, Mr. O'Leary, Mr. Lucier?
Just in relation to the current process. I mean, we go through most of this already. We primarily, well, the town administrator is charged with all the responsibility at this particular point in time anyway, and relies heavily on the finance department as far as the evaluation. Department heads, I assume, bring everything through the finance department. The two of you sit down, go over with the department head, and come through. And make some determinations and do your ranking and take into consideration the needs of the various departments, but also the community as a whole. So I guess one of my concerns is our taking away the responsibility, the centralized responsibility from the town administrator and allowing it to be dispersed amongst others. I think that's a risk because, again, the charter calls for centralized here in this position, and over the years we've held the town administrator responsible for coming forth with capital plans and presenting, you know, short and long range capital plans. So I just see some risk in dispersing the responsibility, you know, to an advisory committee, which potentially again could lead to conflicts too. Is the town administrator going to be chairing this committee? Is the town administrator going to be making the presentation to the board as required? Is the town administrator, I mean, can certainly, you know, form a committee on his own if he chooses to, whatever he wants to do in the way of getting resources to assist him in doing his job and reporting to the board. You know, are we going to be expecting the town administrator to continue to give the report as he would annually anyway to us, and then point out that maybe his recommendation would be contrary to what this advisory committee is pointing out? I just see, you know, a lot of inherent conflicts that can come out of it, which I don't necessarily want to see happen.
Yeah, I see this as an aid, an actual tool to assist the town administrator versus taking his authority and power away. I think we've all seen, all the years you sat here and the years you sat here, Bob, that it's a process that puts a great deal of responsibility and time and effort on the town administrator's part in order to put the capital plan together, which he presents to us. And especially because of moving town meeting from April to June, now the process is even tighter because he's doing budget up until June, and then we get the summer months where things tend to slow down all over the place, and he's charged with getting that responsibility done and to us, and typically it gets to us maybe 2 weeks. I think this past year, we may have gotten a presentation the week before, or a few days before, when we had to make decisions, and we were asking department heads the night they came in for information. I mean, one department head had to keep on running out and getting us information. We were asking. I think it's a benefit. In terms of taking power away from him, I see it, he's going to be a member.
I'm not talking about taking power necessarily, because again, it still rests there under the charter. To me, it's just dispersing the responsibility. And I'm not so sure I'm willing to.
But we will see, because they'll all rank. We will see what his rankings are on each item compared to each individual committee member and as the committee as a whole. So I think he has the same input as he would as he presently does. I think this just assists him in the process in allowing this board to consider in what I would call a timely fashion capital items that we're spending quite a bit of money each year on capital items, and we don't have a lot of time to review and digest and get pertinent information that we would like to have. I think the majority of the board would like to have prior to making that ultimate decision of what we're going to recommend.
And I think from a policy standpoint, we can tweak the calendar any way you want. So you can make the calendar work the way that's being proposed here by April 15th or whatever it is going to be proposed to the board. I expect that to happen. You know, so from a timing standpoint, the board collectively can establish a policy and direction to the administration. That's where we want to see it.
But then he has the issue he's dealing with budget at that time of year too, so I don't see how he can do dual roles. So it's back to...
It all comes into the budgetary process anyway, as to what we're going to be funding and how we're going to fund it and the sources of funding. It's all part of the budgetary process on an annual basis anyway. And I mean, as far as the long-term planning, we're already looking at when debt is falling off and when we can anticipate taking on a major project so that the impact on the tax rate will be minimal. We're doing that.
I just see it as something that we've been lacking. I think it takes not responsibility, but it frees him up to a certain extent when there's more members involved that are assisting him in this process. I think it'll be a better process. I think it'll be more streamlined, and we will have the information much earlier in the process than we presently do. So I think it's a win for everyone involved.
And again, to me, he can form this on his own right now.
He could, sure.
He can do it right now.
Sure.
Whatever resources he wishes to muster up to get his job done, I mean, he can implement something like this on his own. So what works best for his administration, meet the mandates under the charter and our policies to bring it to the board.
I don't see...
So, I mean, I guess, I just see we could be crossing a fine line here where we're establishing an advisory committee to do part of his job. To me, if you want to advise him that maybe he should consider establishing some sort of an ad hoc committee to assist him in his efforts to report to the board on an annual basis by April 15th, go ahead and do it. But for us to be establishing what that membership's going to be, and I just think we're crossing a fine line when it comes to charter responsibilities. And again, boards come and go, and they change, and again, this could get scrapped, 2 years from now, depending upon who's sitting here. To me, it's important, the stability of our government really isn't here because the names and faces change here. It's in, the charter is very clear. The stability for town government is vested in the professional staff that's hired to run and advise the board. So I just think we have to be careful.
Mr. Briscoe?
I don't get the sense that we're getting this presentation and this idea put forward to us because the structure of the board. This is a really good idea because I'm going to be a lot less kinder than Mr. Delaney. I've sat here and I've gone through this process 3 times, and every time I sit here and walk out that door, I'm going, I don't even understand what we're trying to approve here. The details and the information we get are lacking because the process is lacking. No disrespect, but Greg has his hands pretty much full, as we come out of June town meeting and try to get ready for October town meeting. And I think having a process like this that actually leans forward and collects the information in an organized fashion, and he actually has an assistant of committee members that are gonna do a lot of the analysis and legwork to put it into an organized format and then bring it here, because you know what, at the end of the day, we have to make the decision. And the way we're doing it now isn't giving this board the ability to make the decisions correctly. I don't think we have that. We were ready to award $110,000 for a backhoe, and not one person in this room even knew what the hell it was. We didn't know if it was a backhoe they were buying at Home Depot, or was it something they were buying at Milton Cat. It was all over the board, and we can't have that anymore. I'm not gonna sit here and at least give my vote to something that I don't even have a clue what it is. That's why I think this is such I am excited about this. I think it's a valuable approach, and I hope we wouldn't flush it down the toilet because, you know, the charter says we can do something else. Well, forget about what we can do. Let's do what's right. This is about doing what's right in the best interest of the town.
And I don't, just in terms of charter, I mean, we have to pay attention to the charter, but I don't think this is anything contrary
We're
to
not
the charter.
violating the charter.
In fact, I believe town council has issued an opinion, or a legal opinion, saying that it actually is not contrary to the charter. Not that I think he did issue an opinion that's not contrary to the charter, because we got to be.
I think there was some cautionary notes in there.
Not in terms of the formation. Clearly, he looked at the charter, he looked at what the goal was in creating this committee, and it does not go contrary to the charter. So I don't want anyone leaving this room or watching at home thinking that we're doing something that's contrary to the charter. Because I would not. I had discussions with town council too, so I wouldn't want to do that. And I think it's clear, it is clear that the formation of this committee does not do that. I don't know, someone else wanted to weigh in. Mr. Forney, was it Mr. Messeri?
Good.
I have some concerns about it. That being said, I think there is some significant benefit in terms of the kinds of things that Michael's just mentioned. And it's the issue of somebody wants something, the advocate comes in and makes a case for it. But it's not necessarily, when you're looking at the bigger picture, how you would prioritize it. And I'll pick on the fire department tonight. They came in looking for a replacement fire truck, and they probably do need it. But he rattled off a bunch of requirements, which standards that are set by firefighting organization of some sort or another. And, and that's his support for doing that. If I went personally and examined the truck, and I crawled underneath it, and I did a few things, I might have a little different opinion, saying, it's still a serviceable vehicle, even though it exceeds its number of years. And I think that's what maybe Mike is referring to. We talk about looking at backhoes, similar thing. I mean, I don't know much about backhoes from the point of view as this one or that one or whatever. And, if that kind of research is done and provided, you feel a little more confident about the decision being made. That being said, again, that doesn't necessarily have to be done with the proposed committee. It could be done with, as Steve pointed out, support group that Greg puts together. I don't care one way or the other, but I think we do need to do something. And it needs to be done in a cycle that gets us to be looking at an entire budget, which raises another question, and that is, we get our recommendations, we go to June town meeting, and if we want to stick to trying to pay as we go, we may not have, based on the cycle that we're in, and working out of it isn't going to happen overnight, we may have to bridge and say, okay, some of these articles are going to be put forth in October, but everything has been locked down. I'm assuming that's the intent, short of some unknown that pops up.
Correct.
In the main budget process.
Right. We would still have, they would still be in order as we rank them and what we were going to put forth. And so, we would draw a line with whatever the available funding sources were till June town meeting. And then, we can look at it for October town meeting, what we could fund, that portion of it. So, you know, according to how free cash is certified and all that.
Mr. Chair, I appreciate it. I don't have a lot of faith in the covenant process, to be honest with you, and I hate to, if that sounds harsh, I apologize, but when I come here and I'm expected to vote on several $1 million of capital spending, and to see for the first time just a list of streets that are gonna be paved, or at least, in all due respect to the fire department, at least they gave a presentation. And at least when I left here, I was confident that I voted correctly on the fact that this machine was not gonna have a long life expectancy. But to get a list of streets without any background, or to spend this kind of money without doing our due diligence, I don't know the process that it gets to this point, but I'm being told that submissions were done the Friday before, which to me is unacceptable. At least this process allows us the ability to find out what's going on, what kind of requirements or what kind of requests are being made, and to at least look at it seriously and figure out what. I'm not gonna sit here and rubber stamp someone's request. So I'm gonna tell you right now, if there's not a formal process, I'm gonna abstain from voting, because as far as I'm concerned, this is $7 million of taxpayer money. In my opinion, is just say, okay, let's pave this street. All right, we'll pave it. Good job. With no background. I want to know why this street's being done as opposed to this street. Why sidewalks are being installed here and not here. Why this department's getting a new backhoe and they're not getting a new fire truck. And this process isn't working for me. So if you want to leave it the way it is, that's fine. But I'm going to abstain from voting. I'm not going to vote on something that I don't have some backup for. In my opinion, it's back of the envelope, and I'm not going to do it. Anything further?
Just one more point. I mean, I just did a little internet search over the last few weeks. It seems like almost every town around us is doing a very similar process. They're all actually online. They're very similar processes. It doesn't seem like, I don't understand why there's so much kickback here, so much pushback. We're spending money on lawyers to do something that we think is in the best interest of the town.
I don't necessarily think there's kickback. I think Steve raised an issue about town charter, and town administrator's ability to form something like this on his own, which is all valid. I don't see this as pushback. I think it's just a discussion as to should it be this process or something else. But all due respect to Mr. Valiakonis, you have it. You've been here, this is your 7th, 8th year you're into now? And you have it. And we're just, the way I see it, we're looking to give him help.
I agree. Because it's not working for us to be able to make a decision.
To me, thank you for your assessment, because it isn't pushback as far as what's needed and what this board needs to make informed and well-informed decisions. And I think some of the constructive criticism that's been levied over the last couple of budgetary seasons are legitimate and something that the administrator has to take to heart. But I think we need to be careful in establishing some sort of a committee, advisory or otherwise, that again, to me, dilutes the responsibility from where it really lies. And it lies in the position that Mr. Valiakonis holds. And again, if we are not satisfied with that, then that comes up in the evaluation process and he has to take it to heart. Or if he wants to do, he has to make a decision. I think, there are resources available that he may not have taken full advantage of up to this point, or thought of. Maybe this is jogging something loose for him that maybe he would like to institute something. I would like to hear from Greg in relation to, if this proposal doesn't go forward, how would you be looking to satisfy the board in getting, the requisite amount of information on a timely basis so that we can make well-informed decisions well ahead of time? Because the truth of the matter is, we've been pushed against the calendar, all too often. So the situation needs to be addressed. Do you see this as a solution? Are you embracing it? Or do you see some other alternative that you'd be offering us for consideration? Because I haven't heard that.
Oh, I was waiting for everyone to make their comments.
Oh.
But, I think the idea is fine. It's an advisory committee. council is very clear that the committee can't take the responsibility for developing and recommending the capital plan away from the town administrator. I haven't heard anyone say that that's the intent of this committee, so I'm understanding of that. Keep in mind that the challenge that I face is calendar driven. It's all calendar. And the fact is, we have a town meeting, we have 2 town meetings that are within 4 months of each other, and if you look at the deadline for submission of warrant articles, it probably gives us about 2 months between town meetings. That's really the challenge that we face, and under the best of circumstances, you're stuck with that. You finish your town meeting in June, and then you begin your capital process in July. With due respect to the board, there were no submissions that came in the Friday before the presentation to the board. So I want to be clear about that we do the best we can within the calendar constraints that are there. But I'm a little bit curious in terms of establishing an 8-month process for the capital improvement plan, 8 months from the date that the forms go out in October till they come in and they're voted on at June town meeting seems to be an awful long period of time. And the other thing that I'm concerned about is many of the same players that are involved in reviewing the capital improvement plan are the same people that are involved in reviewing the budget process. And when we have these items that come up at October town meeting, at least there's an opportunity to separate the budget and the capital improvement plan. So this puts them both on the same track, and I don't object to the fact that that's what people want to do, but really the challenge that we have is the fact that we have a town meeting in June, we have a town meeting in October, and they're just too close together. They're too close together, and they don't allow for effective management of the community within those constraints.
Anything further?
So therefore,
I will
you
work.
can't change, there's 12 months in a calendar year. And yeah, the meetings in June and October. But we have from October through May to handle the budgetary process, and generally we handle the budgetary process and the capital process during that time frame. It actually, by moving the annual town meeting to June, actually gave us more time.
It does.
More time to work on the budgetary process and hone it a little bit more closely, and that's why we
moved it.
Huh?
That's why we moved it.
I think that piece is worth
Yeah, so really, it's given us more time, more calendar months to work on the budgetary process, and to me, from the same standpoint, the capital process, because capital items generally would take it up in the April, the annual spring town meeting. So the calendar's the same. We've extended the calendar. We just haven't allocated our resources appropriately to meet the challenge, and it puts some deadlines on when the capital plans are to be submitted, acted upon with your recommendations, and brought before the board, rather than at the last minute. We do it April 15th, which is 6 weeks before town meeting. If that's what we can do that by way of policy and direction. I tell you, that's what we want. How you get that information to us and how you glean it is important. To me, as council said, the responsibility to present that is still rests with you. And that's where I get the problem with the conflict, the potential conflicts here, where we have an advisory committee, where you've got a ranking and all these sorts of things coming into play. And again, depending upon how it's established, it may not be subject to the open meeting law, so therefore those rankings are all just internal memos and not necessarily for the public's consumption. But I don't want to necessarily...
We don't do anything for the public consumption right now either.
No, because it's all vested here.
It's all internal.
It's all internal. It's all through our paid administration. And to me, I just want to be sure that if we're doing this, we're going in eyes wide open, where we're going to have potential conflicts between advisory committee members and the administration before he's even made his presentation to the board. And all of a sudden, we're going to start debating the actions of the advisory committee rather than what the administrator is presenting to us in the way of prioritization of resources. And then again, the ultimate responsibility of prioritization rests with this board, not an advisory board, but this board. Again,
Or the town administrator for that matter.
well, the town administrator makes a
Just
presentation
to us, but if we're not seeing we're only seeing what he chooses to submit to us.
Oh, no, I think in years past, and again, I think
It's not
we've seen some other. We've actually had we've encouraged the town department chairs to come in and actually tell us what was presented and what fell off the board.
That's before my time.
Yeah, but I mean, in the past, that has occurred, in the recent past, where the department heads come in here and say, this is the things we were looking for, programs we were looking to institute, capital equipment, or buy a copy machine, or whatever it was gonna be, but town administrator took it out. And we said, yes, I did, and this is why. So there wasn't any muzzles being put on our department heads, not to inform the board as to what they were looking for, because when we see the original budget presentation, it's the department recommendation, administration's recommendation, and then, and so we see a lot of that already. So I just want to make sure that,
We don't see that, we haven't seen that in capital. Why?
We can ask for
The
it.
budgetary process, I agree with you, we see that. We don't see it in capital,
So I think, if the board's going to move forward with this, just be prepared for, some inherent conflicts, which may very well occur. And I just want to make sure that it's handled appropriately. I'm not looking to take a paid administrator and that we hire as a professional in this field, to be pitted against, an advisory committee unnecessarily. Again, I would suggest that he takes the meat of this proposal and incorporates it into something that he can work with to meet a deadline that we'll set when we expect to see the capital projects presented to us. Again, I think some of the criticism that's been levied is legitimate. And again, I think the idea and the concept is okay, but I'm just not comfortable enough to sit here as a member of the board to create another advisory committee to weaken the position of the town administrator. And I know you say he's going to assist him. Again, he can do it already. And if we're going to instruct him to do it, then let's tell him to do it.
But Steve, in all due respect to him, he hasn't. We've voiced concerns, or some of us have voiced concerns.
Oh, we're voicing it right now.
But we have in the past. And the process actually, in my opinion, has worsened, hasn't improved. And I don't put that on him. I know he's challenged by the calendar. It's a legitimate reason why we're put in the position that we are. So I see this as a worthwhile effort to put forward, and I think we're going to see improvement. We have to, just by the process starting when it does, the investigation the committee will do, and the vetting of all these items that they'll do. I expect we're going to get a 3-ring binder with all this information, or electronically, I should say, on here that we're going to have weeks in advance, not days in advance.
I'm in favor of that. I'm in favor of all the information in advance and getting the information that we need and getting the proposals that were put forward. I'm all in favor of all of those things. I think the method by which we get to that point is where I have a difference of opinion.
Mr. Keller?
The Finance Committee has been frustrated by the process for many years and has been fairly outspoken about it, that we're not seeing capital requests until too late in the process as well. Sometimes we don't see them till after you do, and you're not seeing them early enough. I think what this does is gives a systematic approach to the process. So for not just for 1 year, but for multi-years. So you know what's out there, what's potentially out there for future years. The best we've been seeing in the past couple of years are those items that are coming up for vote or proposed to come up for vote in the current year. And that's fine, and it's good to be able to assess those items, but we're not looking at the whole picture. We don't know what else is out there. I mean, the fire chief told us that there's, another engine coming, no pun intended, coming down the road in a couple of more years. Well, that's another big ticket item, and we really need to know about that because that clearly is going to involve bonding. So I think just putting together a plan where we can assist Greg and help him go through the process, I think makes a lot of sense.
Just in relation to Don's comment that the Finance Committee isn't getting the information on a timely basis, true. Again, you've been complaining and loud and clear about that for years. But in relation to the Finance Committee getting it before this board, see, to me, I always think that's always backwards. This board should have it first, and the Finance Committee should then be weighing in on what the recommendations of this board is. Not necessarily helping prioritize.
I don't agree with that.
I actually think the Finance Committee should have it and should weigh in so we know what their input is before I think we have to take their input into consideration when we make decisions.
Well, you know.
I think it's backwards if it's the other way.
See, to me, you know, we set the priorities here. And again, they can react to them, and then we should have enough time to adjust based upon the input of the finance committee.
Oh,
The finance committee
clearly
shouldn't-
that has impossible.
No,
We're
no,
not getting
no,
into
no,
a Friday
no, but I'm just
before.
saying, but the finance committee shouldn't necessarily be driving the bus. They're an advisory committee.
I'm not
to town
saying they
meeting.
drive
No,
the
no,
bus,
They're
but I
the
think
advisory committee to town meeting. You know, this is the board that's got the responsibility.
No one is suggesting that the finance committee is driving the bus. We're not the elected officials. Okay, we're an appointed body. But it is our responsibility to give our opinion, give our views, and make our recommendations. It's hard to do that when you don't have the information at hand to understand what the consequences of those recommendations are.
Right, on a timely basis, I agree.
That's the issue. Whether we get it at the same time as you, or right after you, if it needs to be after you've had a chance to look at it, as long as it was back far enough, it doesn't make a difference.
But based on the current system, I feel like I'm sitting at the back of the bus. I'm not even close to the front of the bus. I'm not even close to driving the bus. I can't consciously vote on something that I received on a Friday afternoon on the next Monday without having backup, and we're not getting it. And I'm not going to do it that way again next year. I'm not going to vote on a CIP next year if it stays the way it is.
I have to say something to that, because this organization has gone a massive restructuring. We've changed. A year ago, we didn't even have a finance director. Between September and November, we didn't have a finance director. We have a brand new police chief, a permanent police chief, an acting fire chief. Gone through a massive reorganization in this community, and I think if there's some patience in terms of letting those people adapt to their new positions, you'll certainly see some improvement in the process. But I would appreciate a little bit of recognition of the fact that this whole organization went through a massive upheaval, and I think did pretty well at the end of the day by hiring the right people in those positions. And if those people in those positions are given an opportunity to understand the process and become acquainted with the process more, I think you're certainly going to see some improvement.
I'm going to respond first.
No, I need to, if you don't mind.
Because I'm going to tell you, I'm a little insulted about what you just said, Greg, because no way did I say that the people you put in the positions that they're in are qualified. As a matter of fact, I think Liz does a phenomenal job. I think the police chief does a great job, and I think the acting fire chief does a great job. The problem I have is, what you just said is, you kind of made it sound like what I was saying was they're not providing us the information, and it's not them. It's as far as I'm concerned, the way it's presented right now is you're responsible for submitting the CIP, and I don't feel we got the information. I mean, I got legitimately 8 streets or 10 streets on a piece of paper saying we're paving these streets.
And we respectfully disagree, Joe.
Okay, we can expressly disagree, but, I mean, if you think telling me a street name, we're gonna pave this street, is acceptable, then we're definitely gonna disagree, because I think there needs to be some explanation as to why that street's being paved, as opposed to just, I'm gonna pave this street.
Of course.
We get some members of the board that just say, you know, put this street on the list. Sat right here and said, put this street on the list.
No, I think the street that if it's a street that you're referring to, it was on the list. And then when we decided to start a new program, it was, no, we're gonna do it all from scratch next year and come up with a ranking system for it. So that street was already on the list. It was on the list for 20 years, as far as I'm
There's been a lot of
told.
streets that have been on the list for 20 years. You know, we were starting to, one of the
So
things,
I don't think anybody
we
hears
have to
it.
be careful when we start cherry picking streets and doing things. The process that we had before was actually pretty good and pretty apolitical, you know, and now we're getting into some other
I don't
territory
think
where we don't want to be.
I wholeheartedly disagree. I think having this advisory committee would keep it from being political, because there's no one on the way it's comprised. No one has any more power than anybody else. So I don't know how it's going to become political doing that. The fact that we're not being told why a street's being done, I think could be construed as political.
But I will say, Mr. Chair, I will get to you, but I want to just respond to that. The one street that you're talking about, Mr. O'Leary, has been not only on and off list for 20 years. And the reason why I made a point of stressing that street should be taken care of is because there were, in my opinion, promises made to residents on that street by department heads in this town, prior department heads in this town, that street was going to be done a long, long time ago. We shouldn't be making promises out there that we don't keep or can't keep. That's why I stressed, once we were going to revamp it all and scrap it, that that street should remain on that list and get done.
You're talking about 25% of that budget on one street that affects 4 houses.
I just have a problem when.
I'm not saying, so if we're looking to prioritize and meet the needs of the community, and again, the people that are directly involved there, I grew up in that neighborhood. I love those people, it's wonderful. And for years, they've been complaining to me about it too. But, it didn't get reprioritized just because of their relationship with me. Quite the contrary, I guess. But, I think we have to be careful, that's all. And I think we're going down a slippery slope. So
there was that one street, and that was the reason why I stressed that the street should get done. You don't make a promise, and then you don't keep it. And I know it predates Mr. Valiakonis coming on board, it predates the current DPW director, but it's well documented that that street should have been done probably, I think it's 1987. Here we are.
we have finite resources that can be expended in streets and
Well, then
far more disrepair.
The promise should have been made. And I don't see that as being political. We got to carry through. If we make a promise.
But that's okay.
But that's not the issue at hand here, it's whether we're doing a CIP or not.
Mr. Messeri.
I just wanted to make a point with respect to the Finance Committee. I think it's to the benefit of the board that the Finance Committee has been involved in the cycle, has reviewed it, and as part of our process of making a decision, knowing where they stand and why is valuable.
Yes.
So
I agree.
Reviewing it before us, in my opinion, is not a problem at all.
It's not a problem, as long as there's time for them to weigh in before we have to make decisions. There's been times where.
Oh, I understand.
That's where the big
that.
problem is.
Right.
And
There have been times when
we're
it
trying
came
to
up at
address
town
that here
meeting.
tonight,
Right, exactly.
if we can get off of this.
Okay. Yep. All right.
Well, we have a motion, we're not going to read the motion?
Read the motion. I'm in favor of reading the motion.
I am too.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I move to create a capital planning committee to include the following individuals: Town Administrator, Finance Director, 2 members of the Finance Committee, 2 members of the Board of Selectmen, 2 designees of the school department. Did we change it to?
I think it'd be more appropriate if it was worded that way.
2 designees of the school department with the following charge: to serve as an advisory committee to the Board of Selectmen by reviewing and recommending the annual capital plan.
Why wouldn't we make it an advisory committee to the town administrator? Then I get some point. He's vested with the responsibility of reporting to the board. Why wouldn't we form a committee, which is now going to be forced to work with, make an advisory committee to the town administrator? Because that's where the responsibility lies, and that's where it's vested. And he still has the responsibility to report to the board. So why wouldn't we do that?
I'd rather have it as an advisory committee to this board.
Well, with the town administrator part of it, it would seem, then where would we fall into the process? I mean, he would have a committee, a capital planning committee that's doing some advisement to himself, and then it doesn't go anywhere. I mean, it would make sense with him being on this committee that it serves us, and we get what they create, gets reviewed and comes here.
Well, you need a second first.
You have to second.
Right.
I'll second it. I second it.
Second. Further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I move to amend the main motion to have it reflect an advisory committee to the town administrator.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Messeri.
And again, just on the motion to amend. My only purpose in this is to be assured that, the responsibility is still vested in, and the responsibility still lies with the position of town administrator, whether it be the incumbent or future ones. And then, what we've done now is created a committee, which is a definitive membership, that he's responsible for overseeing and making sure that they advise, so give him the advice and use it. And again, as far as the timelines and all, as a matter of policy, I would suggest that as a matter of policy, we take another vote and say that we want the capital plan to the board presented by April 15th every year. But that's a separate vote. So to me, let's keep the responsibility where it's supposed to be centralized under the charter. Let's put it where it is. Let the administrator take the constructive criticism that's been levied against him, and the administration tonight and previously, to heart, and this is the first step. And to me, it should remain within the position of the town administrator and his purview, not the board's at this point. We shouldn't be creating another entity to conflict with the administration.
I just disagree with your terminology in terms of conflicting and taking, I forget the other comment that you had regarding, it was a negative tone that it had to it in terms of creating some conflict between this board and him, or him and this capital improvement committee.
It's already there. But I'm sorry.
We disagree.
I don't want to pull a bind, I won't smile.
I just disagree. So on the motion?
To amend.
On the motion to amend, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Motion fails.
3-2.
2-3.
On the main motion?
On the main motion?
Yeah, now the main motion. Any further discussion?
We already have a second, I seconded.
Yeah.
You second it? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Aye with reservations.
Wait.
Huh?
No,
With
okay.
reservations.
Okay, that's fair enough. On the record. No.
No, but I think we need to do something, so I'm going to support it, but with the reservations.
Sure. The minutes should reflect that too, so it's well documented. Thank you. Thank you to those that were involved in putting this together. I know Ms. Herbert, Ms. Kelleher, Mr. Kelleher, Ms. Paveo. Thank you. Voting, put a lot of time and effort into this, so I appreciate the efforts.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank them also. They did a great job, and we met over several weeks, and Abby's not here tonight, but she put a lot of effort in it, and Dawn graciously filled in for her and did a wonderful job also, so I want to thank all of them involved.
Abby is on a plane this moment. Flying
Bless
back.
you.
Probably on our 17th hour on that flight. Mr. Prisco.
Make a recommendation to discuss the traffic study before we do the first reading
I
of the
think
draft
it's a
policy.
fine recommendation.
Weren't we going to make a motion on a time frame for this? Or was that included in the motion?
No, it wasn't.
No, I just suggested that.
It was part of the amended motion.
Was that, we put an April 15th deadline for, just instruct the town administrator to have the capital improvement plan presented to the Board of Selectmen by April 15th.
I'll second that if that's a motion.
That's a motion.
Okay. I thought it was part of what, it was part of the.
That's part of their policy, their process.
You want
That's
to
their
make-
policy.
Okay.
This is
I'm in favor
this
of
is
that.
our policy.
Okay.
No, that's the advisory committee's goals and objectives, but as a matter of, as a matter of this board's priorities, that might be
Yep.
charged to them.
Yeah, it's fine.
Again, reiterate that,
We got a second.
A second?
Let's take it. All right.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Did you get that? Anyone have an issue of taking the traffic study Chestnut New Street ahead of the first reading of the civil fingerprint bylaw
Makes sense.
policy?
I don't think there's many people here for the fingerprints.
You're not? No, anyone here?
Ice cream truck vendors?
All right, so we'll address item, it's listed as item 10, discuss traffic study Chestnut New Street. So, Mr. Valiakonis, would you like to take the lead in terms of
I will just give you a brief summary. As the board knows, we did put out 2 competitive bid, 2 elements of the traffic improvement plan. The first was for a recommendation of traffic mitigation measures associated with the truck exclusion that the board previously considered. We did receive 1 quotation that was in the packet. You've had an opportunity to review it. It was from an engineering company by the name of VHB. The RFP for this particular project was extensive. In other words, we made a request for a number of services which we may decide to elect or not elect. Regardless of whether we wish to elect, we do not need to go out to bid again because it's not a biddable item. So we can negotiate with the vendor if we decide we wish to exclude items from the list. The other item that we did put out for bid was recommendations for redesign of the intersection of Haverhill, New, and Chestnut Streets. And you can see from the packet that we received several responses to that. It's more of a straightforward engineering project. And they would both be, projects would be funded through Chapter 90 funds if the board decided to proceed with them. And at this point, we've taken no action in terms of bringing the projects forward for approval, pending a discussion with the board this evening. And that's the reason why it's on the agenda.
Okay. Can you inform the public as to what the proposed estimates for both projects would be?
Give me 1 second.
Mr. Fode, you have it here?
Yeah,
I don't have my-
the Chestnut Street was $17,350.
And the Haverhill Street?
Haverhill,
So I had it handy too.
Yeah, a little bit, you want just a little bit,
yeah.
Correct.
just a little over $9,000
Who was that?
VHB.
BHB.
EBH.
And they actually gave us a discount if we did both of them combined together. And so the Chestnut New Street project would go down to around $14,000.
And I believe the Haverhill Street would drop by about $1,600.
Correct, yep.
Discussion? Mr. Prisco?
You know, when I read through the proposals, it was clear to me that the RFP was pretty extensive. And I really don't think we really need to go to this length and spend this much money to get what we want. We already have done a study. We paid through town meeting over $7,000 for that. We've had multiple meetings with the residents. We know what the issues are. We know what their concerns are. We've done some internal analysis on options, and the problem is we're not educated enough to decide any of those options are even valid. So to me, I would rather us go back to the bidder, I'm only talking about Chestnut and New Street, and have a discussion with them, and I think we could actually present them a lot of the data, a lot of the information, give them an opportunity to review it, because what we need is counsel, and I don't think we need to spend $17,000 to get that. I think we need to get their assessment on what's been provided, so what's been done for a study, what analysis we've already put together on our own, provide them the feedback, and get some direction. And I can't see us spending any more. I'm not educated in this, but just being practical, somewhere between $5,000 and $7,000, I think we can get what we're looking for. And I'd like to try that opportunity.
I guess I don't know what it should cost. I do agree with you that I think we have done, as you said, the traffic study's been done. There's other information that can be provided, so I'd like to have that discussion with the bidder in terms of possibly reducing the quote that was provided. I was somewhat surprised that it was where it was at. But, to go back to the beginning, town meeting approved money for the traffic study. That was done. Traffic study showed evidence that there was an issue with truck traffic down in that area. I believe at one point in time, if this board wasn't unanimous, the majority of the board agreed that some action should be taken to relieve or reduce the vehicular, mainly the large truck traffic in and around that area. I think we also got to a point where we acknowledged that, unfortunately, we didn't have the in-house professional experience to guide us. That's just the reality of it. So the way I see it, I would go back to the bidder, try to get that number reduced, but I think there's other things that we can do. I think we, at one point in time, were going down a path of a truck exclusion that dealt with moving truck traffic out of that area of town, trying to see if we could direct it onto state highways, Route 28 to 95, Route 93 to 95. And we sort of dropped the ball, and at one point the one decision I regret making here was voting in favor of moving forward a truck exclusion that sent it down 62 to Haverhill Street. It was a mistake. I was up all night when I made that decision. It's not the area that we should be going in. I mean, that, other than time and effort, staff internally, there's no cost to that. And I don't see why we shouldn't pursue that. Let the state tell us that we can't do it. It's not clear in my mind as we sit here that that wasn't an option that we could present. It was conflicting information that I received as to whether or not we could do that. I would like to see us do that. There's no additional outside taxpayer money that we're going to put towards that. We can pursue that and at the same time have negotiations with the bidder here to see if we can get that bid down. I think I just don't like leaving a neighborhood where we identified a problem, we came up with internally several potential solutions for them, we kept backing away from it. If there's a problem, we should try to see what we can do. So that's where I'm at. Great. Anyone else? Mr. O'Leary.
The problem with the neighborhood that we're talking about here is truck traffic. That's what it always has been, always will be. I mean, and the ancillary things come with speed and all the rest that the neighborhood is experiencing also. But we were pretty well informed that, and again, I was in favor of the same thing that you were, and I think everybody on the board was. You know, let's send them back out 62 down 28, you know, straight down to 95, or you know, some other route, 93 to 128. Doesn't matter to us other than get it out of our neighborhoods. And we weren't necessarily in favor of putting it down in front of the high school and the bachelor school. And but that was the only alternative that we were told and led to believe that the state would approve because it has to be from point to point, and that's the only place we had to go. You know, but I think what we wanted to do at that time, and I guess I've lost my train of thought and lost my way along the way here somewhere. My GPS isn't working right, saying it's a different route. But you know, we need the truck exclusion if we're going to do anything to aid this neighborhood. I'm not confident that that's going to occur. I'm not in favor of spending $20-some-odd thousand, you know, to study a situation that we've helped create here. And again, not that the Chestnut and Haverhill Street shouldn't be looked at again, but it's been looked at over the years over and over and over again, and short of some traffic signals, you know, you're not going to slow this traffic down and avoid accidents. I mean, you've got all sorts of sight lines and all the rest of it. I mean, the issue's been there for as long as I've been around. I mean, I remember years ago when there was fatal accidents there, and that's why it's an offset intersection. But anyway, I'm not in favor of what's in front of us in relation to spending $20-some-odd thousand to study both the Chestnut New Street and the Haverhill Street, Chestnut Street area. I don't know if there's any more money we can spend or that's needed to be spent if we're going to just petition the state with what we originally planned on doing, which was send them down Route 28 or send them down 93 from Wilmington. And again, let the state turn us down. I mean, if they turn us down, they turn us down. And then we're going to get a definitive answer that, you know, the only solution is you have to do something within the confines of your own community to reroute the traffic. But we won't know unless we petition them with some alternative other than that. Because the alternative, there is no other alternative for the town of North Reading other than send them down 62. Straight out 62. Not even taking the right at Haverhill Street. Keep going. You know, if you're going to head out to, you know, to either Middleton or Peabody, you know, then through Linfield to pick up 128 if that's what they want to do to head in that direction. So short of thrown all the way down 62 into Middleton and Linfield and Peabody, or let them try and take the turn on Haverhill Street, which creates a whole other host of issues as we found out in our community. But I don't know what another dime is going to tell us. We already know there's too many trucks on the streets.
Well, go ahead, finish.
No, I mean, so to me, you know, let's just put the petition into the state, giving the alternative route as Route 28, or a couple others as we spoke of months ago, and see what their reaction is. See what they say. At least then we'll know.
That's what I'm saying we should do. But I'm not to the point where you are in terms of we shouldn't spend another dime. There's an issue there internally, we don't have the professional experience to guide us as to what possible solutions we can do in and around that neighborhood. So, although I'm concerned with the quote that as is, that's why I'd like to engage the bidder in discussions in terms of providing completely what we have to try to reduce that quote, because we just don't have the knowledge here as to what other
Are we looking
measures.
for
We kicked around.
mitigation, traffic mitigation in the area, or are we talking about moving the trucks out of the area?
Well, from what I heard from the residents, and they're here, and I think they'll correct me if I'm wrong, but their number one issue was truck volume traffic.
Right.
Especially early morning hours going through that neighborhood.
It's always been the issue.
And
right.
speed has always been an issue, but I think the primary issue was the truck traffic in and around that area. So it's, I don't know, I don't have the experience.
No. And
all the knowledge. So
and I
I'm
think,
not against spending some number. The concern of mine is that number is higher than I had expected it to be.
Yeah, I guess my question is, again, if I could find a solution, you know, for even $10,000, that's gonna say, okay, we're gonna be able to reduce the truck traffic in this neighborhood with whatever the study's gonna tell us. But in order to do that, it's gonna involve an exclusion. You know, so.
What? I don't know.
No,
I think, and if I'm, correct me if I'm
sure.
wrong, so I'm gonna try and,
Yeah,
I
help
think
me.
Steve's point
Help
is,
me.
he doesn't wanna spend that kind of money for them to tell us what we already know, that it needs to go down 62.
Somewhere else.
Right.
Gotta go
So,
somewhere
and
else.
I can appreciate where he's going with that. I mean, the issue is that if it's truck traffic, you have to find an alternate route for them to go. If it's mitigation because of speeding and stuff like that, that's stuff that, you know, you can mitigate and you can find ways by various road alterations. But Steve brings up a good point in that,
What are we gonna do?
where we gonna, you know, where are these trucks gonna go? And I'm not saying I'm opposed to discussing it with them, but I think it's not a bad idea to discuss with them and maybe tell them what we're trying to, verbalize to them what we're trying to reach, and they may turn around and say that you're only, and this may just do this at a meeting, say your only alternatives is that, which isn't gonna, you know, and I didn't mean to point to you, I meant go that way. You know, and that's not viable. You know, the state won't allow it, I don't know.
that's
I
why
agree
think we
with
need
that point.
professional help.
But that's, exactly.
I'm sorry?
That's why we need to engage some professional assistance here. And I think we're all in agreement, we're not gonna spend $17,000 to do that. But I think there needs to be a negotiation with them to explain the situation and what we already have. I think we can actually take everything we have and put it into a presentation and provide that to the bidder. And then from there, I think they should be able to sit down across the table. It doesn't say, without getting into any detail analysis, here's what I suggest you could look at. Here could be possible options. And one of them may even say, come right up. No, your only option is to have a truck exclusion that takes you down Haverhill Street. It may be able to tell us that right off the gate. I don't know. But I would like to get that, I'd like to get through that process first.
I agree.
I agree with you, Michael, but I think what I would say is, instead of sending them the information, because they're gonna charge us to look at it, is I would sit down with them first.
Yeah, of
Have a
course.
discussion with them, let them, because it's typical, and Greg, you can chime in on this, it's typical to have a pre-meeting with them before they start any work, pre-project meeting, and say, this is what we're looking for, and they may turn around and say, there's no way of obtaining what you're looking for, based on what they've already looked at. I mean, they've looked at some stuff for them to give us a number. And I don't know if they don't understand what we're looking for, or they do, but it's not a bad idea to have them come in, sit down with Mr. Cannavale, and maybe if someone here wants to sit with it too, just to provide some information, whoever spoke to the residents the most, maybe you, Sean, I'm not trying to give you more work than you already have, but someone who has more knowledge than I do. I haven't been on the board long enough to know all the ins and outs of what's going on, but it's probably not a bad idea to do that, and then get some feedback from them.
A question for Greg. Was this solicitation a quote for professional services?
It was.
Okay, so it's not a bid?
No, it's not a bid.
Yeah, you can,
So we have the ability to negotiate with the engineering firm, and we should.
you do anyway.
I volunteered to be part of it. I mean, I've been involved, and I've met with most of the neighbors, so I think I have a good handle on it.
I know a number of the residents came out, Does anyone wish to get up and give us your
Yeah.
input?
I'd
I
like-
don't, we've spent a lot of hours, so I'm sure you can keep it short.
Oh, he's got a notebook with it.
Short, but we should keep it short.
I'm Dave Ham, and I live at Ground Zero on the most traveled residential truck route in North Reading, I'm sure. I live at 126 Chestnut Street. Beautiful vantage point overlooking the intersection with New Street. I have hearing aids, but I don't have any trouble hearing the Jake braking going that way and the upshifting of the cars, of the trucks coming up New Street. I'm very aware of the safety issues concerned, the speed issues, but really, from what I understand is in this study that we have, is there's too damn many trucks. Speed is an issue, safety is an issue, too many trucks. Now, I have a question, and that is, what are we obliged to provide the truckers? Away from point A to point B, which is from Park Street and Chestnut Street to New Street and Havel Street, which is not what they want. Do we all know what they want? They have the most beautiful shortcut off Route 40, exit 40 on 93, or on Lowell Road. There isn't a turn between there and exit 40 on 128.95 that's more than 45 degrees, mostly 30-degree turns. Three traffic lights, couple on Main Street here, which really aren't too troublesome. The one at Winter Street. Other than that, they have a clean shot to completely avoid the intersection of 93 and 95. And very few bad turns, it's quick, it's easy. If we block it, if we exclude them, are we obliged to get them from point A to point B, from Park and Chestnut to New and Haverhill? Or are we obliged to give them a new shortcut? Do we know what we have to give them?
I can honestly answer you, I don't know.
Well,
I've been told.
and because I think what we want to do, what we'd like to see happen is that we just block them off there and let them fend for themselves. That could be 28. It could be to go all the way down 93. If they're going up to Peabody or Salem, they could go down 62 and take Main Street, Boston Street, Russell Street.
If your question was, maybe I misunderstood your question. If your question was, do we need to provide them an alternative route? Yes, we do.
From A to B?
Yeah.
Well, that's what's conflicting in my mind. I've heard
It's
it
not so
both
much,
ways.
it's not so much A to B, but you have to provide them with a way to get from, I wouldn't say
Point
A
to
to B, but from.
From out of the neighborhood
Yeah,
to
you
an
have to
access
get, they have to, I mean.
To
there's
get
business
from
there that utilize.
Lowell Road to
whatever route it is. We don't.
exit 40? We have to find them an alternative?
No. To get you from
The New Street,
Winter Street
New Haven,
back to New Haven.
New Haven.
That's the route that you.
Okay, that's what I'm calling it.
That's okay, you have to do the great circle, almost the circle with just a little
Okay.
piece that's missing.
Okay. Now, the concern has been that I've heard voiced, is that we're trying to shift it down 62 to Raya Store. There'll be another traffic light in there shortly, I think, and the Raya's traffic light is a bad one, where they have to make a 135-degree turn, add a mile to the...
I'll lay your fears on that one. We did the reverse on that, and we're not going back there, I don't think.
Okay.
No.
I was hoping we'd get one at Chestnut and, Central and 62, but that ain't happening.
Yeah. But I think we need the full traffic, truck exclusion, and let them fend for themselves, whether they're 28, 129, from Wilmington to Wakefield, 62. They'll find ways, but they're not ever gonna go that other route.
The problem is the state won't allow you to say you can't have trucks on this road. You have to say how they get.
That's why I'm wondering,
Yeah.
you know, if we would cover ourselves by saying, yeah, go down to Raya Store and take, nobody's gonna use it. There's no trucker's ever gonna wanna do that.
I will say this, that was one of the things, and that's what Mr. Delaney was referring to, that we voted on, and I think, I don't want to speak for everybody else, but I think we kind of regretted it after we did it. But I spoke to Mass DOT, Department of Transportation, and they based on, we didn't submit the application, but they said that they would be very doubtful that would be accepted because the turn off of Central onto 62 and then coming off of 62 going to Haverhill Street is they wouldn't be able, the truck wouldn't be able to make it. You'd even have a head-on collision.
If it was as simple as just excluding them from Chestnut Street, we would have done that months ago.
But, and I've heard calming and mitigation and everything else, that should happen. Wherever they go, they should be slowed down and controlled, but there'll still be too many unless we exclude Chestnut and New.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Lau.
I liked your comment about putting stuff on the back of the envelope, because I feel like that's how
Are you
this
going to use it against me, Alan?
Well, you weren't here for most of it.
No, I appreciate it.
Doug Lab, 130 Chestnut. But I feel like that's how we've sort of come to this, is we've all been sort of putting this on. And I think, Mr. Lee, I was the one that gave you the impression that you have to get them from point A to point B, and you have to create that alternate. I forget the gentleman's name from the town.
Carnival.
And our town administrator, I had made references to the original report that we were citing, and that I had known somebody. His name, he's part of the Rizzo Associates. I don't know if they have a division. He's still in it. I'd be happy to reach out to him again to find out whether or not they would like to put in, given what he's already caught up on, how much they charge us, for him to give his insight and professional opinion. I don't know how that would work, but
What we typically do is we pre-qualify 6 engineers to do work with the town. And what we try to do is we try to stay competitive within those group of engineering firms that we have a business relationship with.
yeah.
So I'd have to check and see if Rizzo's within that. They very well may be.
I don't know if it's called Rizzo anymore.
I know
It is Rizzo anymore.
I know
It's Tetra something.
Exactly.
Did they submit something?
No.
But I spoke to.
They weren't provided an RFP.
No, but I saw Mr. Rizzo, there's a Mr. Rizzo.
Just a coincidence.
Oh, okay.
So again,
What are those proposals?
we keep it within a limited number of firms that we have a business relationship with, which is not unusual.
Right.
He's a point of contact and somebody that I've used for reference when I was getting some of the information. He's the one that cited the other study that superseded this one that we had originally were using. So that may be an option. Certainly if it is something, I can help reach out to him and see if he can help us with the creating something, getting answers, but at a more reasonable price. A couple of things I wanted to bring up. First was, I feel like we've gone back and forth on whether or not it's been promised or not promised. Every time I've left one of these meetings, I've gone home and told my kids, we got no trucks. And then it's, what's transpired. I don't want it, and as some of our neighbors, we're not looking to create problems for anybody else. We're looking to solve our problem. That is, as Mr. Ham eloquently said, is get rid of the trucks. We did set aside money, and I know that it was allocated someplace else, to get our police where they could pull these trucks over. They can pull them over for speeding, but any other violations, they're not allowed to cite them for. They can't even get involved with that. Correct. But they can get trained, and we had money set aside for them to get trained, and where they could start to pull these trucks over. Part of why they avoid that interchange, in addition to time, is also they avoid the state police. And having our police force trained where they could set up and pull some of these trucks off the road, they may look to go elsewhere and avoid our town. It's another option in addition to some other things. That was all I had.
Thank you.
Thanks, Doug.
Board members?
I would like just have one more comment from the peanut gallery.
That's fine.
Kim Smith, 151 Chestnut Street. And I just want to say, I think that some of what you've talked about here tonight is sort of what we need to do, that we've got the traffic studies. We're all agreed on what we want to do, but it's how do you get there? And that's where we need the professional help. Do we change the opening where Chestnut Street meets Park Street and put a beautiful island there in the middle and make it a different kind of a turn so it's not this easy slide through for the trucks? Do we make New Street one way? We're not sure which way. They're both bad from the traffic standpoint, but you know, something, anything to make it less attractive to trucks and slower in general. And honestly, with everything going on at Ryers and at the Batch and at the high school, I've been driving up to Manchester a lot lately, and the whole center of town there is one way to keep the traffic flow down and to keep it slower in front of their schools. And I'm not saying we're quite at that situation, but that's where I feel we need a professional to come in and say, have you looked at taking this whole block and doing one of these? Because I just think that there's an option to solve a lot of problems in there and put our money to the best use, and instead of making the neighbors feel, oh my gosh, now we're pushing it on them. What if there was another way?
Mr. Weiser?
You know, I was thinking about this a couple nights ago, and she's kind of tweaked my memory again. But why not apply for a truck exclusion just on New Street, which forces them down Chestnut to make that difficult turn? Then we've talked about having to do something with that intersection. Do something with the intersection makes it even harder and safer for everybody at the same time. This then gets to the point where now they've got a, referring to the other gentleman, a better shortcut. We hadn't talked about that. Getting a truck restriction on New Street should be easy.
We got a couple of New Street neighbors. Can we do a pedestrian walkway?
But what's your alternative? Do we have to?
You can still go
The
Chestnut.
alternative, they go down Chestnut Street, now they have to make a turn. It's not, now it's a right angle
Oh, it's a
turn.
challenging turn.
It's a challenging turn. And we talked about, maybe we've got to do something with that intersection anyway, with respect to.
I'm sorry. I don't know if it would be approved only for the same reason that they wouldn't approve the ones we wrote for, because it's a 90-degree turn, and they don't want a truck that has to pull out into the opposite lane and cause a head-on collision.
Sean. This is why we're doing it again, right? We're doing it to ourselves again. I think we have some great ideas, and I think we just need the professionals to give us the counsel, rather than us sit here and try to analyze it and pick the right one. We don't have that ability.
No, and we would still have to give an alternative route.
Right, and we need
Even
to
if
get
we did that.
professional
Yeah, but
counsel.
the alternative route, right,
Straight across.
is straight across, take a right, which is now hard to do.
Gets them down.
Therefore,
And then they go all the way out to Route 1. Because if they go straight shot, Chestnut Street, Lowell Street, BB, there you go, you're on Route 1. Have a nice life.
I think that's what ends up happening though, and then do we really
No.
want to be, sending them down 62, past the schools, past Ryers?
No, he's not talking about that. He's talking about
Chestnut.
sending them at the split, keeping them on Chestnut and let them go
no,
Chestnut.
but then they have to make a left turn and a right turn. That's not easy either there.
And the thing is, you know,
The point is, I like this gentleman's idea, is to find a way of living within the rules and making it difficult for the trucks. They'll find another route.
Closing it off altogether might be
Take
the answer.
Mr. Hammond
Well-
by eminent domain.
a rotary right around the house.
Yeah, it is, I think, really a matter of satisfying what the state says we have to do.
Right.
Because if we just plain blocked it up and didn't have to do that, those truckers would find other ways all over the place. Like 129 and like, you know, they'd find their own shortcuts, but we were obliged to find one for them.
Can you shoot them down Park Street? Can you shoot them down Park Street? To, come to the end of where Elston's house is and take a right there?
For winter, take a right?
Yeah.
Well, if that's the case, you should just continue on down 28.
Right.
From
Right, but if you
62.
put that, but once you put it there, people don't wanna make that turn either, and then they're not gonna go that far. I mean, I think what Jennifer said before, we've been saying right along.
Right.
If they'd allow it, once somebody's stuck in that traffic on Park Street in front of the school, they're gonna do it one time and they're not gonna do it again. So eventually, everybody's gonna turn themselves off by doing it. And, you know, most
I
people.
guess
aren't-
we need some help to find a way
Professional.
to discourage the trucks from coming down through that section of town.
You gotta
Yeah,
get agreement sitting down and.
Yeah, we gotta negotiate with them to get them where we want it. The RFP was really aggressive. It had a lot in there.
So let's make a decision.
Again,
We've been-
pre-budget meeting, you're gonna.
Yeah, let's move on. Let's wrap it up.
Let's make another decision.
Well, let's
Yeah,
continue.
I don't know, is there any sort of consensus on what I first stated in terms of going forward with a truck exclusion from Chestnut New Street with the alternative route being, go ahead. You already saying, no, you're already shaking your
I'm not
head.
gonna shake my head, I'm sorry.
With the alternative, let them tell us that we can't give the alternative to be 28 to 95 or 93 to 95. But that was being the alternative. In addition thereto, in the meantime, we can bring in or invite the low bidder in and have further discussions in terms of their quote, in terms of reducing that quote in order to get the professional experience that we need, that we're lacking. If there's any other measures that we can undertake to curb this issue.
Any other measures that we can take to curb, again, I just need to clarify what the issue is. The issue is truck volume.
Correct.
We're not talking about other mitigating, let's get all that other stuff off the table for right now.
Truck
Truck
volume,
traffic
I see it
mitigation.
Right.
I mean, that's,
Number one
That's it.
issue.
the rest of it, we can talk about later.
Right, but the RFP had all that in there.
Right. No, I know, but that's what we asked, that's fine,
Right,
but,
yeah.
you know.
We didn't focus on what our problem is.
I think the answer is that all the other mitigating stuff is the way these engineers actually look at implementing it. The stages that they say is, you want truck exclusion, and they look at saying, okay, we'll raise platforms or narrow streets. It's all that mitigating is stuff that they try to add as part of it. If you get the opportunity and you're sitting in front of them, very often in that questions and you're sort of talking, if you just throw out the question, hey, is it point A or point B as you're trying to talk, they might give you the answer that you're looking for while you're negotiating with them for your point before you actually apply. Because my fear is that you're going to throw that up to them at the state and then they've already started looking at it and they're going to answer no. Whereas if an engineer sends it up to them with their plans as to a little bit more crafty, they may say yes if they're given those, if it's filled out properly by a state engineer. I think by going to them first and getting their answers and looking at it at a reasonable price, I think you're going to find that they're going to be able to solve that problem, where it's going to go. Mr. Musari's answers of, they can find their own answers after that, but this is what the map has to say as far as us officially saying they got to go this way or they can go this way. Let them figure out their own ways after that, but let the engineers at least weigh in and give us their opinion as to where this would go to get the trucks out.
I don't know who- Mr. Fode first.
Okay.
Let me just throw this out. What do you think about calling Mass DOT District 4 and sitting down with their engineer for an hour? Again, maybe Mr. Carnavale and whomever from the board. And, I mean, they were more than willing to speak. When I called them, they were open to anything. We spent quite some time on the phone. I've met with District 4 in the past. We now deal with District 6 in Chelsea, but they're more than willing to help and come out and give you some suggestions, spend some time with you.
Good idea.
And it's probably one of the first things, and then talk to them, find out what can and can't be done, what is viable, what isn't viable, and then talk to the VHB after that.
That makes sense.
Yep.
They're very accommodating, I gotta say. I mean, they want to make sure that, they want to save themselves time too. And every time we submit something, it takes them weeks and weeks of looking into stuff. And if they can come here and tell you what can and can't be do, verbalize it to you in an hour or an hour and a half meeting, they much prefer to do that. This way they're not wasting resources.
I like it. I think it saves time and effort on the part of the staff here. It may get us the answer whether or not we can go forward with that truck exclusion as I suggested, or it's off the table completely. So I don't think we can give an alternative that's in town that doesn't cause the problem to go somewhere else into another neighborhood. So, I'd be in favor of that, and I'd be in favor of...
Yeah, because we don't need to hire an engineer consultant to give us that information. We can go to them for free, which is just more of our, takes time, and if it's one of the...
I can get the
board
information of
members-
who the person is who you want to talk to.
Just to your original point, as far as, going for the truck exclusion, I'm in favor of that, but not until, I would suggest, as Mr. Levitt just said, just, talk to the engineers first, see what they had to say, and see if you can get an answer. But I think Joe's suggestion of getting District 4 involved right now, before we even talk to the little bidder here, would be important. And I think it'd get us to a point where we would have some pretty good information and direction. So I say, yep, District 4, if need be, District 4 may give us our answer, one way or the other. But if District 4 leaves us with some alternatives, then we talk to the engineer, see if he can modify his proposal to get us where we need to be. And if that isn't going to happen, then we go for the exclusion as to whatever the district tells us we can do.
So, is that the consensus to give the direction to the administration to contact District 4, bring them in, have a discussion with them as to what may be?
Well, we may have to go there. We may have to actually make...
I think what's going to happen, you're going to have to, you typically like to meet in their office. What you're going to do is just bring all the information you have to them, and maps, and they're probably going to want the traffic study stuff ahead of time before you get there.
And a member, will you be the liaison with the board?
It's up to the chairman.
It'd be helpful if we had a board member.
I'll go, absolutely.
Thank you.
Rita?
Well, so what happened to the flashing light? We're gonna get it repaired and put out, we know they put signs up and they put some things like that after all those meetings, which helped, but the last thing I think was that blinking sign we were gonna get.
Speed sign?
Yeah, Dick,
Forgot about that.
Dick actually, no, I had actually been in touch with him on it, and he was supposed to get us some information on it.
It needed repair, right? Wasn't there an issue?
It's non-repairable.
Oh.
So the borrowed one? Were we borrowing it from somebody before?
No, our blue one is non-repairable.
Yeah, we
but
got that blinking
the
one.
feedback signs.
No, there, as you know, there are much more smaller devices.
Right,
If you
cheaper.
drive through Wilmington on Glen Street, there's one that's right there at the railroad.
Dick was working on getting some options.
You could actually ask District 4 actually to borrow one also. They might be able to lend one to you. If not, they have smaller ones now.
The small ones I'm thinking of.
Just put on it's solar and it just gets put on a pole.
Right.
That's
As
exactly what I'm
opposed
thinking
to,
of.
I know he was looking at that as one of his
I've
options.
seen those.
I think he has.
But District 4 would probably lend you one as well, at least for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, if I could jump in, he was also trying to acquire the crosswalk, those little crosswalk signs that look like a little man holding a flag. You ever seen them? He was looking to
they
buy
have
those
just the
as
straight
well.
ones
I
that
thought
are
he did have some down one day I went by.
No, that was a joke I put on Nate's yard.
No, he was going to buy it though, and I know he was, we're gonna ask him for that too.
I'm a mean neighbor. Also, I didn't know if we could put back on the table getting the police trained be able to stop the trucks.
That needs to be part of the chief's budget
Budget process. We'll have
I
a
know that it
discussion.
was once before,
It's more than
he spent it on.
Yeah.
I think it's training, his equipment too.
Well, I think the state
but-
police has to get involved.
They have to
They do the
go to the state police to get trained.
Right, but I think there's equipment that the town would have to purchase in order for them, once they had
Yeah,
the training,
scale,
to put
yeah.
into use, so.
I was
Some-
witness to the sting they ran that morning. I don't know what I was doing up that early, but they towed
Jake breaking.
dozens of trucks up.
Right
Oh,
beside our house.
right.
It's tea time.
Yeah, it was nice. We're trying to get him to do it again.
Yeah. It's
Wait.
amazing.
We're trying to find a solution. I think you know that. It's been a step forward and 4 steps backwards, but trying to find a solution that's also cost factor that we need to consider too, so. Hang in there. I know it's been a long time, but we're moving forward. We're taking a step, all right? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you for your patience. Continued patience.
Did you guys vote on that?
Nope.
No, I didn't hear you guys actually vote.
We're not voting
We
anymore.
don't vote
We have to take it back.
We directed the administrator to.
Tasking. Like every time we vote, we gotta contradict ourselves.
And let me be the first to, if he's gonna do it. Mr. Prisco.
Oh, you can't go.
No.
I'm only kidding.
This is for your,
My lunch?
for your tax for the
Oh, there you go.
the thing that you're setting up.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
I'm gonna take that.
Oh,
thank you very much.
I'll write a little thing for you, make sure your name goes in there, you'll get a letter. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
I'll let them know that.
That's all I could think of when he said that.
Groundhog Day.
You skipped over the.
Fingerprint. We'll go back to,
We still have a quorum. Let's go.
we'll keep it moving. It's the first reading.
I move to reconsider. No. Two to one.
Okay, Joe. First reading draft policy, civil fingerprinting bylaw. The whole bylaw needs to be written?
No, do not read it. This is an internal police department policy, which you normally don't adopt. However, in this instance, the bylaw that was approved by town meeting said that the Board of Selectmen would establish the policy. And what this is a policy, in other words, what the fee is, what the application process is, what the requirements are for the people to apply. So this needs to be done because the bylaw was actually approved by the Attorney General in record time. It was our view that it probably wouldn't apply for your renewals on January 1. Mrs. Stats informed me today that the bylaw was approved by the Attorney General back on October 12th.
Excellent.
So it will become effective once it's published 2 times in the newspaper. And so that means that it will become effective for all license renewals on January 1. And my office has already sent out a notice to any affected licensee warning them of the fact that this is coming down the road. And there will be a policy that will be issued to them shortly. So hopefully this is just a matter of whether the board has any questions about this. And if you don't have questions, what we can do is put it on the agenda for the next meeting and vote it at that time.
Board members, any questions?
I have no problem with questions in supporting it, and if that's what we need to do, let's do it.
It's $100 license fee per applicant.
Per applicant, so that means if you have a livery service in town, you have 4 drivers, it's
That's
$100 per driver.
Correct.
And that's an annual fee,
It's an
Greg, or a
annual fee.
one-time fee?
No, annual.
Is that what are we really looking to do that to a local business as opposed to somebody coming in there hawking their wares, you know?
I don't know if you can have a different price tag.
Well, if you have a livery service, I mean, a livery service, we issue a livery license.
Right.
All right, so why can't we have that as a separate category? This is just a suggestion, a separate category, and through their livery license, require them, again, the bylaw requires the drivers to be, fingerprinted and all. But, make it to cover the cost.
Well, that's why I raised the question of annually. If this is a fee to fingerprint a specific person, as long as that person's in the job, why do we charge them annually to do the same thing?
Well, that's a good question, to the fingerprinting, because I'm sure they can run.
Yeah, I think that's a one, somehow I think that's a one-time
That should be a
thing
one-time.
per employee.
They should have to list who their employees are as of January 1, so the police can then run those fingerprints again each year. But in terms of an annual fee in the case of a livery service, for each driver, seems to be, could be excessive. And like you say, that's a local business versus Comcast sending in a flood of.
Yeah. And I think that's what the, really the intent was.
Yeah. It's also, so a local established business that falls under this category, I think needs to be a separate category within the bylaw, within the policy in relation to, you know, annual renewal fees and the initial, you know, fingerprinting and all that could be more, it could be the $100, whatever it is, but after that, if they've already been fingerprinted once.
The intent here isn't to fingerprint every single employee of every business in town, right?
No, just a specific.
Specific categories of
Yeah.
businesses.
They're right here, actually.
And then,
So in other words, with a liquor license, it would only be the manager, it wouldn't be the employees.
and if the manager doesn't change, right, you know, then the manager doesn't have to be fingerprinted again.
Right.
And to me, they should be covered through the annual renewal of their license anyway, you know, and you just have to register with the police department annually. Right. You know, so that they're on file, on record. And there's a change of manager, new fee.
Good point.
Yeah,
Good point.
You know, we may never have another carnival in town, because if you have every carnival worker that's gonna be charged $100 up front, you know, you're never gonna have a, and that might not be a bad thing, but I mean, this is, but you know, you certainly, you know, your Comcast and your Verizons and those people who are out knocking, they hire the college kids to come in here and start trying to sell you something. I mean, they're like a revolving door.
Right.
I mean, I don't know how many college kids that I know, college age now, that have, you know, done a stint with Comcast or Verizon knocking on doors. You know. Some of them shorter than others. You know.
Mr. Foss? Yeah, I'm sure we were told this before, but I may have just forgot. How do we derive the fee? Do you know, Greg? The $100?
The fee is actually in the policy. So the fee was not voted at town meeting.
Okay.
It represents what we consider to be our costs in doing the necessary research on these individuals. So all of the requests will come in through the lieutenant in the police department. He'll be responsible for maintaining the program and running the files.
Thank you.
Question.
Mr. Prisco?
Is there a way, maybe I'll give you an example, and then you can ask, and I have to ask if we can waive it if we wanted to. Some of the young local college kids, I think, go out and sell those knives. Are you guys familiar with it, right? I mean, I would assume now they would have to get fingerprinted, right? And they'd have to pay a fee to do it?
Oh, yes.
I think you want, you know,
I mean,
probably a little
do we
cynical,
have some latitude to waive for certain things like that for the, I mean, I'm not sure if it's a good policy to waive anything like this, but I'm just throwing it out there.
That's what it's designed to get at, is to
The
determine who's coming to your door.
Well, the other thing is, I mean, some of these kids, the ones who are doing they're not doing door-to-door on the knives. That's usually
You're right.
cold calls, referrals, that sort of a thing. I'll come to your house, you know, hey,
Did have
Mr.
one do
O'Leary, you know, I'm
door-to-door.
selling knives these days. Can I, you know, come over and give you a pitch? Sure, come on over.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, I see
Yeah,
that.
that is different.
It's more knocking on your door.
Right, it's
Yeah,
not a
that's
knocking on the door. That's more of a
I just want to make sure.
trying to sell you life
Right.
insurance, you know.
Yeah, we want to be careful that we treat everyone the same.
I agree.
Yeah. But,
Poses some
yeah,
issues.
that's not like,
Yeah, you're right.
It's not like
I don't think
Verizon
it
or
is.
Comcast. What's that, Joe?
What about the high school kids who, you know, from the football team who come around selling
Yeah.
the cards?
The cards, there are.
No, I know, I'm just saying, I
yeah.
mean,
No, there were exemptions that were in the
Oh, good.
bylaw.
School fundraising?
Anyone that was involved in charitable
Great.
fundraising is exempt.
any charitable fundraising?
Correct.
Okay.
The whole thing is,
That means I can't get rid of Michael coming to my house every day looking for money for the pantry.
That's correct, he's exempt.
So I think you'll go back, I know you'll go back.
I'll go back,
Speak to the
as,
chief regarding that.
the change the board is wishing to make is page, section 2, general considerations and guidelines. And it's got bullet number 2.
Yeah.
And then it indicates this applies to all new license applicants, but also for renewals and transfers. So it's the initial fingerprinting and then transfers, and then on an annual basis, we're not gonna make these people go back and apply every year.
Pawn dealers. Now, do we have any pawn dealers in town?
Do you consider this, there's a store?
We
I don't know if
may.
it's still
That
there.
gold store, that,
Right.
yeah.
What?
They,
One.
That-
Yeah.
Near the water place?
It's not there
Right.
anymore.
Oh, it's not?
Yeah, they buy and sell gold and all
Right.
those
but
things.
they could be. Pawn dealers and secondhand articles, those are licensed through the police department. Because
Okay.
if you recall, those never come before the board. Those are licensed through the police department.
So like a secondhand, like a consignment store that sells clothing? It's interesting. I think it's very broad, but.
I just want to remind the board with respect to the fee, is that the town isn't getting all of that money, which raises another issue, is that we just creating this to fund some federal agency.
It's a state, yeah, that had to do with firearms, what it was.
Right.
I think it feels good and makes sense, but then
Yeah,
implement it, it becomes a nightmare.
I'm in support of it. I think it's a good thing.
Would that change?
I'm not against it, I'm just.
I know.
I think that it's.
Firearms, fingerprint identity, yeah. A portion of the fee is specified in Mass General Law such and such. It shall be deposited into the Firearms Fingerprint Identity Verification Trust Fund. So, that's fine. Which we will see
Doesn't
fingerprint
clarify
on-
what portion.
Yeah, the larger portion, but to me, that's the one time, they're fingerprinted once, not annually.
Okay,
You know.
there's no need to fingerprint more than once, if you do it right.
And then if there's a renewal, and I don't know if a portion of that renewal fee goes in this fund too.
No, I didn't view it as a renewal. I agree that if you're dealing with a business that does these fits into the purview of this bylaw, then you might require them to file a report annually because their employees could change.
Right.
I'll throw a little crazy one, but I think we really should, each one of us on the board should be fingerprinted. No, seriously, we're in here doing business for the town. And, you don't know, we don't know. And we should.
I don't think so. I already did my background check, you, don't worry about it.
No.
I didn't need fingerprints.
I don't know, something that I think we should consider. If you look into Mr. Fode's background,
See
you
if
may
we're
not want
really
him
who we
voting.
really say we are.
Fair enough.
We'll make revisions to it and bring it back before the board.
Yeah, maybe they can, or maybe they can't, I don't know. Yeah, and if it is an annual, I don't know if it says annual here or not. I didn't see it, the fee as an annual.
When are we doing the second reading, Mr.
Thing.
Delaney?
2 weeks.
We haven't done the first one.
We haven't done the first one.
Well, I think what was explained
We're not
was that
we're not gonna do
when
it.
you stepped out,
That's
it's a
not-
policy, it's something that doesn't come under our purview.
It's a police department policy, which is why it looks different than the normal policies the board gets.
All right, I think we're down to old new business.
Yes.
Mr. Frisco?
All right, 1 second. Get this pulled together here.
Pulling up, we need a second.
I have my list. Stop it, you guys are mean. Just mean. Put your hate down. NORCAM. NORCAM is looking for 2 board members, especially one with some kind of accounting background that may be familiar in QuickBooks. And their next meeting is the 24th of October at the Damon Tavern. And it starts at 7 o'clock, so if you guys know anyone that's interested in joining the NORCAM committee, they're looking for 2 new members. I want to send out congratulations to Erica Hansen. I think the last meeting, I know it was a private, that we were going to send out a letter. I wasn't sure if that was done yet from the board, but I think it's phenomenal that she was selected for the Citizen in Action Award. That's wonderful. They couldn't have selected a better person. Her relationships that she's created to establish the communications in this town and with other outside organizations that really benefit our children, she certainly should be commended for that. The Board of Selectmen workshop, are we still on schedule for the 25th of October?
Can everyone still make that date, or is that?
We
I
talked about
prefer
it.
a different day.
Prefer a different day?
Okay, I'm just saying that was the date we had selected.
A while
some time
ago, yeah, right. In
And-
fact, I called Sean because I saw it in my calendar and we hadn't had any discussion about it, and it's next week.
Yeah,
So I still have it on my calendar, but no.
it still works for me, but
Well,
if it
I
doesn't
don't
work.
think it works for everyone.
Okay.
And again, we may have a meeting in
Emergency
between,
meeting.
just a quick executive session. so-
While you're looking, I'll finish up my other couple things. You probably, Greg, I know you've gotten some complaints about the food pantry in regards to parking here at Town Hall. And I just want to pass along a thank you to Dick Carnavale and John Walsh, because they really have been great trying to assist the food pantry folks. And I just want to bring the board up because you may get some feedback from some of the employees. There's been some concerns and some complaints from the staff. Usually what happens, they typically meet, they have hours of operation about 4 times a month, and you only can come once a month. So what typically happens is about 25 to 35 families usually come. But lately, it's gotten a lot worse, and it's been well over 45 families. And so that's kind of created a little traffic jam out here in the back parking lot near the gymnasium. We're working on getting some signs made. We're working on putting people out in the parking lot to direct people from not parking along that fence when you pull in, because it's actually narrowing up the entrance and exit area. And if the emergency vehicle had to get in, it would have been a problem. So the food pantry is definitely addressing it. They wanted me to pass along to the board that they're doing everything they can to make sure they rectify the problem, and that we find designated spots to put 35 to 45 cars now that are happening. When they see it starting to spread out, they're actually asking some people now to spread off into days where there still only 25 people coming to try to balance it out. They're also going to make some investments in for the elderly that can't make it into the food pantry and out. They're going to work on finding them locations to park in the back and then use some kind of a cart system to bring them their food and then get them on their way without causing any more traffic jam. So on their behalf, I want to apologize for the problem, but recognize that things aren't getting better for some of the folks around here. I mean, it's still continuing to grow at a steady pace.
What's the issue as far as the employees? Is it around the time that they're leaving work?
In the mornings. It's in the mornings when they start. They start around 8 o'clock. And they all start around 8:30.
Yeah, it's just not about parking. There are oftentimes children that will dart across the roadway, and it's not normally an area that you're used to seeing children dart across the roadway, so your attention may be distracted. The real concern we have is that there could be a tragedy. Some kids just darting across the road.
But they were working it, and thank you for the staff for jumping in and helping. And the last thing I had was, when are the absentee ballots supposed to be available?
They're available now.
They are available.
You need to,
well, can we get news and announcements to send something out on that?
We just posted a news and announcement today
That was for not inactive. Yeah, that was for inactive voters.
Inactive.
Okay.
But we haven't sent out anything on absentee ballots.
And you can register to vote up until
November
17th
of 17th?
October. Yeah, the election's November 6th. It'll be a little late.
Yes,
If it was November 17th.
All right, so, yes. And want to get back to the dates, or you want to do that later?
Let's finish up.
That's it. That's all I have. Thank you.
Mr. Mercedes?
So I wanted to also congratulate Erica. Obviously, she's done a fantastic job, and on the community impact team, she's really driving a lot of the activity in that area. So it was a well-earned recognition that she received. I happened to be talking to Russ Carricker the other night at the Aldersgate fundraiser, and I was trying to get a sense of whether it was growing or not. And they were growing. They think it's leveled off.
Mm-hmm.
It may have come down a little bit. They explained that fiasco there took place a couple of weeks ago, that they got out of sync with people coming as a result of a holiday. So that may, even though it's always an issue, that was kind of an aberration.
It did, but it did flow over to the following week as well. And that's why I think initially they thought it was that, but then when it went over to the following week, they had some concerns, so we figured we'll just address it. Let's just address it and make sure we eliminate the
I don't
problem.
disagree with you. I'm just saying that
No,
it
that's
was,
a good point, though.
as a result of a holiday, they got things a little out of sync. We have a new employee in IT. How is that going?
Going great. Gentleman's name is Brian Carter. He started here, I believe it was last month, and he's doing well. I touched base with Gene, who's the department head, and with Liz. We're both very pleased with how things are working out, looking into some new initiatives. One of the things we talked about a little bit today was, rather than bringing in a projector every time we have a presentation in this meeting, there are low cost and reasonable alternatives to that. So we're starting to look at things that are outside of the normal scope of what IT has normally done in the past.
with respect to that, I mentioned this to Sean, is the other day I was trying to find out who the chair was of one of our committees. And when I look on the front page or where you go to committees, that is so far out of date.
I did it today.
And I called Barbara Stats, and she says, she says you got to go to her department, and then she's got another link, and she's got an accurate or an up-to-date list of everything. Can we get that fixed?
Get it synced.
It's in two different places on the, where everyone would normally go, right? It's wrong, out of date, hasn't been updated in several years.
Some of them 2005.
Yeah. And if you go to her website and then go to, I don't remember the exact link she has, and then you have to go to the Board of Selectmen appointees. There's a whole list of who appoints. Then I found the information I was looking for.
No problem, take care of it. That it should be, that other page should just be updated, because that's the easy link. We'll correct the link.
Yeah.
Well, piggybacking off of that, Greg, someone has to look at the site from top to bottom, because there's a lot of things that are not updated. So it's just not that link.
No,
yeah.
Right.
The site itself has to be looked at. Anything else?
No, that's it.
Mr. Fode?
I only have one quick thing. I don't know how many of you are aware that Ed Melanson, the assistant high school football coach, was in a car accident about a week and a half ago. So I know he missed at least the last game, and I think he was in the hospital for a few days. So I just want to wish him a speedy recovery. I know the players all miss him. They had a great comeback come from behind win a week ago Friday, and dedicated it to him. So I just want to wish him a speedy recovery, and hopefully he's back on his feet very soon.
I was just going to, again, congratulate Erica on her recognition, well-deserved recognition, and all that she's doing, so it's great. On that, all set.
Excellent. I just have a few things. I, too, like everyone else has already done, congratulate Erica. And if the public doesn't understand, this is an award that was given at least countywide, if not further than that, because it was presented to her by District Attorney of Middlesex County, Jerry Leone. So it's a tremendous award for her, and well-deserved. Also, I commend the DPW and the Water Department for getting on the water main break on Wagon Drive about 2 weeks ago. It's a substantial break, affected about, I think, 70 homes. It was addressed immediately and was repaired by, I believe, the end of the day. Late in the afternoon, I think it was completely repaired, so I commend them on that. Paul may recall, I know some people have asked me to follow up on this, but we had a discussion on a September 17th meeting regarding DPW overtime, and at that meeting there was a little conflict between our town administrator and our DPW director as to whether or not our town administrator had asked of the DPW director certain information. Later that week, the DPW director did get back to the town administrator and this board, and then recognized and acknowledged that in fact he was requested of the information. It may have been an oversight on his part, and so just bring that forward. He apologizes for it, and once again he reiterates there has been better communication in terms of the expenditure and overtime since that date. A couple other things. As I was here, I got noticed that the high school golf team made the state tournament this year. I don't think they've made the state golf tournament in a number of years. So that's a terrific accomplishment for them, and their coach was also a teacher of the high school, Brian McAuliffe. One last item in terms of the high school, middle school project. There'll be an official groundbreaking ceremony on Saturday, November 3rd, 10 a.m. It'll be up at the middle school area site. So all board members are invited to attend. The public's invited to attend. In terms of where that project stands right now, it's a continuation of what's called the value engineering process, in terms of the committee deciding what fixtures, whether you're using granite or some other material, wood veneer. It's a work in progress, and we will get to no more than what's been allocated by the town at town meeting at the election in terms of what that project will cost. There's some earlier release, what's called early release packages that have gone out and will go out in terms of the site work, the foundation work, and the steel work, and they'll be out within a week or so. Bids will be in November, and that project is really going to take off in the near future.
Chuck, can you just, and I know you have stated before, but can suggestion be made again to Gilbane or whoever else, the local contractors be given preference in the hiring process? I know you can't stipulate it.
Can't,
but
I know.
Encourage it.
It's being encouraged.
Good.
It has been, but it's got to be very careful. You can't specifically pick a local. But
the locals that the local students that they go through, local shops can give preferential treatment to local residents. And if that can be at all encouraged, it should be.
Yeah, it has been, and
That's great.
it will continue to be.
Sean, so it's the 3rd?
Saturday, November 3rd, 10 a.m.
10 a.m.
10 a.m. And that's all I have.
On the dates.
Meeting
date.
Meeting date. We can.
As far as the.
We can decide that's an off-site meeting anyhow. It's not a public.
No, I'm talking about the goals and.
It has to be posted.
It has to be posted, but we can decide. We can close out this and then decide that meeting date after, right? Or do we have to do that
Yeah, because we're going to go back in the
public?
executive session real quick, right?
No, you should do it. You should do it here, because it'll be a posted meeting of the board.
Yeah, it all depends. So if it's not next Thursday.
How about the 15th of November? It's kind of between weeks. We're going to have a meeting on the 5th and the 19th, I would guess.
Parent-teacher conference. It's all right. My wife can do it. I can make it.
What's the date? I'm sorry.
All right.
November 15th. Does that work for everyone?
For me, for you, Greg?
Yep. Okay. 11:15 at Hillview Commission Room. 6:30? Oh, 6? 6 p.m. 6 p.m. 6 p.m. Okay. So we have
6 p.m.? Okay.
motion to adjourn regular session, but re-enter into
So moved.
executive session.
Into executive session for the purposes of, what are we going in for? Michael?
I'm sorry.
You were the one that requested it.
Contract negotiation?
Contract negotiation, yeah.
It's what I think it is lease value of real property.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
That's probably a better.
Yeah, all right.
Yep.
I'll lump it in
All
there.
right.
Yeah, we'll go to executive session for the purpose of discussion of what? lease value of real
Discussion
Second.
of lease and value of
Discussion.
I
property.
made the motion,
You made
I
the
guess
motion,
you.
so I'll say.
Bob, Mr. Misery moved, Mr. O'Leary second. Mr. O'Leary?
Aye.
Mr. Fode? Aye. Mr. Misery?
Aye.
Mr. Frisco?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. It's unanimous. 5 minute.